Okay, so I think we're officially live now.
Yeah.
I think Jonathan Warner's giving me crap about my lights.
All right, so it's official. I have, this is what I'm drinking.
What you got there?
Some Elysian Avatar and my Samurai.
Nice.
Check that out. Hey, there's Eric. Let's see, I've got Woodford Reserve. I can't even see me. I have Woodford Reserve double oak barrel thing. I don't know.
It's a double oak. I'm
That's
drinking, let's see, Four Roses single barrel.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah.
All right.
And with no ice. No ice is very nice, by the way.
Oh, yes. I have ice in mine, but it melted while we were waiting for all of those mishaps to go away.
Yeah.
I had ice on the outside. Not anymore.
Well, cheers, guys. Let's kick this off
Cheers.
right.
Cheers. This stuff's disgusting.
All right, let me give you, I'm not in the man cave of justice right now because my wife was looking for some tax documents and our file cabinet exploded all over, and then she went on vacation. So I've been instructed not to touch anything, but it's like it's everywhere. So you're like tiptoeing through. So I just set up in the living room. Let me give you a little tour of what I got. I didn't bring the whole rig. I just brought out a couple little things.
That's not the whole rig.
That's what she said, right?
Here we have my Epic modded Custom 22 with the Epic Overdrive mod and the, what's the other one? Captain Crunch. This is my Jet City 12. It's got the Eminence Legend. And then this here is the Sex Drive. It's got all the knobs off. But it's this little combo that I made. I've done a bunch of recording with it. It's a little 10-watt amp. It's pretty killer. Oh yeah, and then there's Goldie.
And Bryce, for the longest time, I thought you were a sentient Les Paul.
Yeah, I kind of am.
You still? Oh no, you're not a sentient Les Paul anymore. Yeah, that was your profile pic for the longest time.
It literally was. It was my profile pic for like almost the entire time I was on Facebook. So better part of a decade. So it's cool.
Cool. Kale, what do you got?
A couple things here and there. Let's see. I'll start on this side. Friedman modded 20H. I've also done a few things. This has got basically the BE drive, BE voicing on it, naked clean channel, Metro effects loop, and the SAT switch. And I've also put on a depth control choke, and it's got the Epic Bulldog transformer on it. And I think that's all I've done to it.
Oh, I forgot to mention my C22 has the Epic also.
Yes.
Pretty much Epic'd out.
Yeah. Below it, my 50H, which is SLO spec, whatever. Clean crunch switch on the front, and then channel switch on the front, and depth control, and that's it. And it rocks.
Cool,
Marshall
man.
cab underneath with black backs.
Tell me, what's that one with the Epic badge up there?
This is the Amelia with the Firehorse mod.
Cool.
And
Nice.
also, I've also put a tone stack switch here. And it goes from the stock value to basically just a Marshall, which is, I think, what, 33K, 500p, something like that.
Yep.
And yeah, it's great for like if you're switching cabs. I mean, it gives a whole new kind of flavor to it and really lets you fine tune it. It's nice. And underneath that is the Earhart. And I think I've had that for 4 years, 5 years now.
Probably one of the coolest Jet City amps in existence.
It really is, man. It's
pretty cool. I think the only one that might be cooler is that the digital pot one.
That one's pretty cool. I was also gonna say the blue Earhart.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I wish.
So, and then mine's King, obviously.
Right. All right, let's talk about your bonerific power of.
Hey, Kale, what's under the Earhart? Is that another amp under the Earhart?
Actually, this is on loan from Bryce. This is the Amelia prototype.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah.
Oh, Bryce, you're just sending out prototypes to everybody and didn't even give me a call?
Well, this is I wanted to hear if there was any sort of difference between the prototype and just the regular production model.
So, and what's the verdict?
They're the same.
Yep.
Same?
Really
Wow.
Wow. The prototype obviously is like a huge box. I mean, it looks like it's like PV 5150 sized.
So, and I don't know. I consider. I mean, I've got one right behind me. I consider that like a medium size ish amp. Like it's not huge. I don't think. That's what she said.
Yeah, totally.
Well, here's the.
There we go.
There you go. And then the American 212 with vintage 30s underneath it.
Nice. So I still want to try one of those one day.
Yeah, worth it.
So, but I can only keep one cab at a time right now. The two cab thing's a little ridiculous. So
no, it's not. You know how many I have in my garage? I have like 6 cabinets in my garage.
Dude, my stack is taller than me. Like it's nuts. So, anyway, I guess I'm representing like the smallest number of Jet City products because I only have the HDM right there, and then under that, the HDM's stock right now. I don't have anything done to it, but
yes,
I plan at some point to send it off to Bryce, and he can work his magic. So, or actually, I think I'm going to do the mod myself and try to do it on a YouTube video and kind of show people what the process is. But
you know, I'm only 4 hours away, Luke.
Huh?
You know, I'm only 4 hours away.
I can solder, dude. I worked on the PV. Like that's nothing.
Great job on that one too.
You're missing the point though. That's a chance to like high five and clink bourbon glasses.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
And then Uber home.
Yeah, Uber home all 4 hours.
Yep.
Yeah, so the HDM, it's stock. But then I think Bryce keeps telling me to get the Epic OD channel, which I'm curious to see what that sounds like because you know Bryce knows my tastes and everything, and he's recommended that over like the Diesel and the Bogner Shawl and what was the other one, Bryce? I was looking at the custom audio one.
Oh, the C3.
Yeah, the C3.
And
sorry.
you really need to call that C3PO.
Yeah. But yeah, so I want to do like a video just to like show like how easy it is, I guess, to mod these things and kind of do like a comparison. So that's that top amp there. The little baby red one, I don't think you can see up there. That's a hilarious little thing. That's the Hotone Heart Attack or the hot one, hot tone. Yeah. Who knows how to say it.
I like Hotone personally.
I like Hotone too. That thing is ridiculously loud for how small it is. And then below that,
D power amp, isn't it?
Huh?
Isn't that a Class D power amp?
I have no idea. They claim it's only 5 watts, but like with it on full blast, it's probably about as loud as like a 5150 on like 1.5. Which is pretty loud. So like you could get away with it like mic'd up at a show. And speaking of 5150s, I have my 6505 Plus back there. That is my first like real tube amp, I'd say. And that thing I've just modded the crap out of. It's totally redid the clean channel with a lot of help from Matt at Automium. And then it's got like a 5150, 5152 switch. So like you can switch between the two versions. It's pretty cool. And then just like a couple of extra filtering things like the power amp and stuff. And then below that is my favorite, and I'm going to try to not talk about it a whole lot.
I'm just going to send you a PayPal request right now.
I know, yeah. Do I get a pass to say the name this time?
Yeah, go for it.
It's the Diamond Phantom USA Custom 100, and that thing is a monster. So I love that amp. So, really? And yeah, the guys in the chat, I mean, I don't know how many of them know that, but Kale, Bryce, and we talk all the time. I do not shut up about that amp. Yeah, Tom Socia, the amp that shall not be named.
Luke, so the topic of diamond, why don't you talk about how you were double fisting 2 diamonds today?
Dude, it was cool. I don't know if I can post pictures in the chat, but I
just walked in the room when I said that. It had the weirdest look on her face.
It did sound a little weird.
It's not weird in this house.
Yeah, dude, that nitrox was awesome. Like, I think I still dude, that nitrox though.
So good.
Yeah, no, it was cool. I mean, I like the Phantom more, but like it's still a killer amp. But
so what's anyway, that nitrox based off of?
I think it's like its own thing. I've heard like a Bogner Uber, but I mean, I've never played a Bogner Uber, but it didn't really sound like one. It actually sounded not that different from the Phantom, like just slight tweaks to it.
Okay.
But like it wasn't as versatile. It was like just like balls to the wall high gain, like 2, like it was already saturated and stuff. Like
so
it was
more gain
nuts.
Than, you know?
Yeah, it was just straight gain. Like that's really only a metal amp, whereas like the Phantom, you can get a lot more out of it. You guys want to hear the Jet C? I'm running that tonight. I've got it plugged in and everything. You guys want to hear it?
Yeah, dude. Rock our socks off.
Sounds great.
We're just getting the acoustic.
Oh. You don't hear that?
I hear the strings. That's all we're hearing, buddy.
Oh, no. What? Oh, no. That's not good. I was supposed to be able to play.
I had to get all fancy with the Logic.
Oh, no. I guess they won't be able to hear it tonight. That sucks. So I thought, oh, well, I'll try to figure it out.
On the other hand, I can just like go over here.
Yeah, but dude, my parents are in bed and stuff, though. I can't like, I never get to crank my amps up, like ever. That's what I was telling you like the other day, like whenever I got to like really crank my cab and like see like where the speakers start resonating, that's like a rare thing for me.
Yeah. Kale's going for it.
But oh no.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I don't know. Find a table around here.
You guys want to see something hilarious?
What's that?
Give me a second. I gotta take it off my wall.
All right. So while we're waiting for Kale and Bryce to stop screwing around, why don't all of you guys in the chat tell us where you're all from? I recognize a lot of the names from the Jet City group. I just don't actually know where all of you guys live. So where's everybody from? So, and I'm really sad that like, I'm sad that my
I did this a while back,
Check that out. Oh yeah, that's your that was that TV show, wasn't it?
Yeah, I did a TV show pilot called Rock God.
That was that TV show, wasn't it?
Yeah.
They did.
It's kind of funny.
That's
I don't get to show it very often with a straight face.
Hang on. I think hang on. Let me know if you guys can hear my guitar now. I think I got it figured out.
Nope.
What? Are you kidding me?
Is that Kale?
Yeah, that was
how's that
Kale.
coming through? Is that loud, quiet, or
No,
what?
it's good.
Yeah.
It's kind of phasing out though.
Is it?
Yeah, it's probably like his
The
phone
compressor
or webcam or whatever, just like
Yeah.
screaming in agony.
Probably.
So, well, now I have the worst sounding guitar out of everybody because mine doesn't work. Which,
There you go.
Oh, there you go.
there we
Yeah.
go. Okay. I was gonna say I know I had it working earlier. I don't know what
Mute.
happened.
It
Huh?
was starting to fade out pretty bad though.
Was
Right
it?
toward the end. Yeah.
I
It's
don't even know.
It's crashing out.
Yeah, I don't know. I was explaining to Kale earlier. I have like this. It was quite the setup. Oh,
Checking
Tom,
out the chat really quick. Hey dudes, I see Tom. I see John Flanagan, Charles, a lot of Tom, 2 Toms. Jonathan, yeah, Jonathan.
let's see.
Well represented group. My apologies.
Tom Sosia, I hope I'm pronouncing his last name right. Kale, he was asking how close the Amelia and the Earhart were. So I know you said that the prototype is exactly like the Earhart.
Yeah, the prototype is just like an earlier revision
Mm-hmm.
of the Amelia, but the prototype Earhart is more like, if you're familiar with like a Cornford MK50H Mark II, that's really what it is. Might be a couple different changes in there. I've got the schematics for the Cornford one, but I don't have schematics for the Earhart, so I really don't know unless I just like tear it down and start measuring everything, which I'm not interested in doing right now.
Just too much work.
Yeah, it's not worth it. But once that lead-free solder gives up in a few years, then I might have to anyway. But the Amelia is like, it's aesthetically, yeah, it's definitely based on it. But as far as like the circuitry and everything, it's not really all that close. It's just kind of borrowing bits and pieces from a lot of different amps. But it's got its own thing going on, and I kind of tweaked it a little bit after I did the Fire Horse mod to make it sound more like the Earhart.
Mm-hmm.
But it would take like a lot of work to really get it 100%. But it sounds close enough to me right now that I am confident retiring the Earhart. It's not even gigging with it anymore. So for what it's worth, yeah, it's amazing. And even just right off the box, it's killer.
So yeah, I feel like, you know, the Earhart, with as cool as it is, like I assume like you'd always want to use it, but like that's like a special amp. Like you can't just get another one.
Right.
So the 25-year-old Scotch, you know, not your daily drink.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I used to gig with the Earhart. I mean, since I've had it, I gigged everything with it. And I always had another backup amp. It was either the 100H or the 50H that I've got back there every time. But I would always gig with the Earhart. It's worth it. That's why.
Hey, Tom, I see Tom's asking a question about, is there a huge tonal difference between the stock output transformer and the upgraded one?
I was just about to bring that one up. Actually, I saw that too.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think it depends on the transformer. Let's see. First of all, the regular output transformer, the stock one's actually pretty good. When I installed the Epic Bulldog, I was like, oh, that's good. But it wasn't mind-blowingly good. And I think where you really hear the difference is when you start to get volume behind it. But just moderate volumes, I think it's because that one is designed to it's kind of an upgraded part to similar, whereas there's another one that I've used before, and I've shared the link. It's actually for a 20 watt Fender Tweed Deluxe or something. And when you plug it in, that one was night and day difference. It was like everything was better about it. And I just remember like the AB, it took me like an hour or something to throw it in. And when I plugged in, I was just like, holy shit. Like everything was better. The top end was, I think I even said, holy shit. The top end was smoother, like less bite in a good way. Still had like plenty of articulation, and it wasn't like a blanket over it. It was just, it did everything right, but better. Like the bass held together, but it was more complex. Like I heard things in the low end that I didn't hear before. And that could just be that it was different. I mean, it's a slightly different spec, but I always recommend that transformer. It's like $50, totally worth it. But again, I've got the Epic one and this one, so I like it.
I've always been kind of curious about the Mercury stuff, because what I've heard is that like they're very stiff and kind of clear in the top end, which for somebody like me, that almost seems like something I would want, you know, with like me playing like the high gain metal stuff. Like you'd think I'd want like a tighter sounding transformer, right? But
I think the Mercury's, I don't know this to be true. They don't release their specs, so you can't like go and look at the spec sheet. Mm-hmm. But their whole thing is, it's just marketing and positioning. So they spend more on marketing and they hype it up. They're really, you know, I had an amp with a couple of those in here, and I didn't think it sounded that great, to be honest. And I don't know, like to me, it's what, if you had that sticker on your head and you were trying to sell it, maybe it helps you with your resale value just because of word of mouth, and they're supposed to be good, kind of a thing. But let's put it this way, like the Friedmans are selling a shitload of those, and those come with Habor.
Yep. Habor. Actually, what? I
was gonna say I might have to start charging for that too.
Yeah, I like the Habors. Actually, you know, funny you bring up the Habor versus Mercury thing. Is another, I forgot who I was talking to, but another dude said that he had the same amp I have that shall not be named, and he put Mercuries in it, and he said it like totally changed how the amp sounded and felt and stuff, which I don't really know how you like get a whole lot better than something like Habor, which is custom made, you know?
Oh, I was going to say, I don't know if I said this or not. I'm old, so like I forget 5 minutes ago. Eventually it'll catch up to me and I just won't know my name.
You already know.
That'll be later.
It's Steve.
Yeah. I'll have to like get it tattooed, you know, memento. Anyway, I heard and I don't know, this isn't a fact, this is just what I heard, but that they're ultra linear, which is more like a hi-fi thing, means that they feel a little different and they sound a little different because we're used to hearing tube amps that don't reproduce, like they have a little bit of a roll off on the sort of hearing end of the spectrum. And they do a couple other, like they do respond a little bit differently. And so, you know, we all grew up listening to the sound of those transformers. And ultralinear, the hi-fi guys tend to use ultralinear because they're flatter.
Yeah. Are you talking about the Haybors or the Mercuries?
Mercuries.
Okay, because I actually when I was just making those IRs that I made, like what was it, last week? I can tell you that those Haybors are actually really, really linear too. That's why I use that amp actually, because I went through all three of the amps and tried to find like, okay, which one's the flattest to blast pink noise to, and then just put like a little EQ correction on it. And by far, like those were really, really flat.
Huh.
So I wonder if like something like Friedman, like if they're doing the same thing, or like if they're just kind of.
Well, those ones are. I actually used one of the. If you look at one of the amps on my channel, I think it's a BEBI, and it's the one where like the amp's missing its faceplate and it has like some kind of weird ostrich Tolex. No, it's cool. The guy that modded it or sent it to me, he bought it used, and the guy did like a really shitty job. I couldn't even get the head in. It was like kind of like not even glued. It was sort of like stapled with the stuff kind of bending around in there, and it was really thick, and he didn't trim off the excess. So his plan was.
I did it right.
I think it had your signature in there. So his plan was to re-Tolex it after he got it back. But anyway, if you look it up, that amp has the 50-watt Haybor, and it's the one that Friedman uses. I'm 90% sure about that. And so that one is it didn't sound ultra linear to me. It just sounded more I don't know. I changed the whole amp, honestly, so it's hard to go A/B between the two. But I know that it sounded killer.
So I think like ultra linear transformers, I think that'd be like a cool thing for companies to start doing though, because I love like the high end clarity. Like it's really addicting, I think. And like once you hear it, like a lot of amps just sound like they have blankets thrown over them, and it's like you're always trying to fight to get that back. Whereas like if the amp just naturally has it, I think it's kind of a nice touch. And like if it's too much brightness, it's not even brightness, it's just like air and like clarity on top of the sound, if that makes sense. Like it's not. It's
at that more from like a recording aspect, or just like playing the amp by itself.
Both.
Like
both, honestly, because like if I compare all the amps and stuff, like you can really tell with like those Haybors, like there's just like a clarity to it that I don't. It's just kind of addicting. So I love that sound. I can
part of what you're hearing too are those KT88s. That's their thing. They have a really linear response.
What KT88s?
They don't break up right away. Yeah, they don't break up right away. So
what I don't have KT88s.
I thought you had those in the DML.
No, those are 5081s.
Oh,
all three of the amps have the same tubes.
Oh, crazy.
No, I should have done KT88s though. I don't know why I didn't. It would have been a much better idea.
Yeah, but those are still pretty similar, I think.
The use out of those KT88s though.
Do what?
you'd have to really crank it up to get full use out of those KT88s to really make them shine.
Yeah, but you know me, like I don't like to push the power section at all. Like I like to stay tight. I mean, the HDM, demonstrate, like it's on like 3 right now, and like I don't want like any kind of like flubbiness in the lows. Like I like it to like react really fast and be tight. So like I need a solid state power amp, I think is what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, dude, just grab a Moss valve, man.
Yeah, just get some Moss valves.
Yeah, they're
I gigged with one of those. I gigged with a Moss valve with a Rockman XPR preamp.
There we go.
I had it for like 5 years.
Oh yeah.
So
not a tube in sight.
Can you build me one of those, but with like a Metal Zone preamp instead?
Totally.
See, Tom says the KT88s would stay clean forever. Yeah, I'm going to be kicking myself now. I'm going to be wishing every day, looking at those tubes, like, man, they should have been KT88s.
Here's the thing, though. I think you're fine with the 5881s. They're, you're not really gaining a lot. I think KT88s and 5881s have a pretty similar response. I think you've got a little more linearity in the KT88s, but you're not going to get much extra volume with the voltage you have.
Mm-hmm.
I designed 100, like a big grown-up version of the sex drive.
Yeah.
And it was like a 3-channel 100 watt with a pair of KT88s.
Yes.
And it was, you can't just use a standard power supply, because what happens is it takes a lot of voltage, like 850 volts, to get a pair of KT88s to be as efficient as they say on the spec sheet. But then you can't just feed 850 volts into your preamp, because even if you didn't blow everything up, you're then increasing your headroom. So you would have the loudest, cleanest amp in the world at that point, theoretically, if nothing blew up. So you still have to drop the voltage back down, and you can't just do that with a regular resistive network like you do in like a Marshall or something, because then what happens is you go in for that big like drop C chord, and your power tubes go, and your preamp tubes go, and you get massive sag.
Yeah.
And so there's only one real way to do that right. And you have to design a custom power supply, and you have to have a power transformer with high output taps for the 850 part, and then like normal taps for the rest of it. So you're just feeding basically your plates of the 5881s with the 850 volts. And then the rest of your B plus line. It's a pain in the ass, but super expensive, but totally worth it.
So what?
Isn't it like 3 or 4 times more than what it normally sees? Like something around 200 or 250 volts, typically.
The power tubes of like your average Marshall see like 450, 475.
Oh, on the power tubes, yeah.
Yeah, at the plates.
Okay.
Oh, 500 to go home.
Yeah, high watts get up there, and trainers also.
Wasn't there, am I mistaken, or was there a guitar? I'm looking right now. Was there a guitar amp that had like 4 KT88s? Or am I mistaken? I thought it was
I think the Gus G does.
There's a few of them.
Yeah, I thought it was like a German, like a Diesel or something, or a Bogner. I thought there was
Science amps. They make 200 watt KT88 amps. I think it's 200 watt.
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up real quick.
I believe Fryette, the Sig X. I think that's a 4 KT88 loaded amp.
Oh, is it?
I think.
I thought it was KT77.
You might be right about that.
I don't know. I'll have to ask my buddy Matt because he's got both amps that I just mentioned, and I think that they're all KT88 loaded, and I think they're quad. Both.
Well, Kale, I just noticed your Jet City shirt.
Yeah.
Oh, is he represent? Oh, look at him.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
the Sterling hat.
I got Star. Oh, I'm hitting myself. I got Star Wars on.
Nice. I just have a black T-shirt, but it's made out of bamboo. So it feels like wearing a vagina. It's like the smoothest thing you've ever felt.
Did you?
I'm surprised it's not pink then.
Oh my god.
Yeah. Let's see. I think, who was it? Tom was asking about. Oh, I can scroll up.
Yes, you can. Good job, Grandpa.
How do you do it?
Well, we were delayed by like 20 minutes.
He had a Splon that was that he had Hayward transformers.
Oh,
Yeah.
gotcha. Somebody was asking.
I don't know because I had a quick rod a couple of years ago, and I have no idea if it was Hayward loaded or not. But it was. I really missed that amp. I will say. I mean, for the '80s stuff that I like to play, that's just one of the best amps you could ever get for it, just right out of the gate.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Tom was asking if should you upgrade both transformers. Honestly, I don't see any reason to upgrade the powered transformer. It's pretty good. It does its job. If to me, I would rather upgrade the power, like the filter caps and all of the the diodes and all that kind of stuff first. That to me is like the last thing in the world on that amp that I would replace. I would just, I think they're fine. I guess the only time where you would want to is if you're trying to do something crazy like add a tube or something.
Like KT88's in it.
Yeah. But so if you don't know that you're giving it enough current, then maybe you'd want to do that. I have a custom 5 project that I'm I should bring it out actually. You guys will shit yourself.
Oh yeah, you should bring that out.
All right, hang on. This is going to be funny.
Okay. I have another question for Bryce after he gets back while we're on the topic of transformers. And actually, Kale, you might know. So I feel like the main problem I have with the HDM, and it's like a small problem, but like it doesn't react as fast as what I would want it to. Like whenever you're playing like those super fast parts, like with like the 5150, like it's like instantly like the amp's just back ready to go to take the next note. But I feel like the HDM, like it's almost like there's like latency to it. What?
Like spongy almost.
Yeah, kind of like it just like doesn't like react like super fast, where you almost feel like you're playing faster than what the amp can handle. So, and that's like because I like the tone of it, but that's like the one thing is like, oh, it's like not super fast.
Okay.
Yeah, and that could be just because if you look at the 5150s, they've got a shit ton more gain, and that's just instant.
Yeah.
Where like a more vintage amp, it's got a little bit more sag, a little more sponginess to it. So that could contribute to it.
Mm-hmm. You think that'd be like?
Okay.
What is that?
So this is just a custom 5. I've got the faceplate on the back, or maybe I just stuck the cabin backward, the chassis in backwards. But this
what do you got going on there?
Is going to go inside.
Dear
if I can
God, man.
So check it out. It might fit, but I'm gonna have to trim this out. And so what's gonna happen is I'm gonna add a tube socket and have parallel EL34s. So this is going to be
maybe like 25 watts and sort of voxy, kind of cleaner. So it's just going to be like a loud, compact, little heavy amp. It's going to be like a fucking black hole, just as dense as it gets. So yeah, this thing weighs like 15 pounds or something.
Did you swipe that from like a diesel or something? Holy crap, dude.
No, the dude sent it to me. Oh, and also he sent me a power transformer too. Yeah, so this is like a 25 watt transformer. It's a Hammond.
Jesus, dude.
I've got one of those Hammonds. It's like I think mine's a 50 watt, and I'm still trying to figure out what to do.
So Bryce, what we were talking about before you came back, I can't even see if he's. Oh, the screen's so small. I was talking to Kale how like my main complaint with the HDM is like how fast it reacts. Like, if I wanted the amp to react faster, how would I go about doing that?
Well, the biggest thing is part of the reason for that is the stiffness of the power supply.
Mm-hmm.
You could increase the voltage, but you're going to also lose some of your gain if you do that. And then also, that amp tends to push a lot of bass through the preamp, which is why when you it has so much low mids to it.
Mm-hmm.
It has that sort of thick sound.
Yeah.
So you can do some tone shaping to shave some of that off, and then you're putting the emphasis on a slightly different range of frequencies that are going to respond faster to your pick.
Okay. Because isn't the Soldano overdrive circuits? He says it's like more upper mid-range focus, right? But what I hear is always like more. I would consider like lower mids, like that dark, throaty kind of sound.
Yeah.
Whereas like I'd say more like a 5150 would be like the upper mids kind of bark and snarl.
Yeah.
Right. And it's different than a Marshall. There's a couple of reasons for that. It has to do with the way the tubes are biased, and I mean the preamp tubes. So when you're designing an amp, you can look at it's called a load line.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a graph, and it shows like voltage and milliamps, and it basically you can look at the characteristics of your plate, and you can actually of your tube, and you can plug in your numbers and draw the line, and then you can decide on where you want your like cathode value. And you get a different sound that way. So you might have similar, like, let's say you had, I'm just going to make numbers up. I don't know how accurate they are, but if you took like 100K anode resistor and like a 2.7K cathode, those are pretty standard Marshall values. And then if you turned up the anode, you made it like a 220, you're going to get more gain, but it's going to feel and respond different. It's because you're changing the load line, the loading characteristics of the tube. So maybe it has more compression or a slightly different response. And that's what's happening here. So again, like a standard Marshall JCM 800 or Plexi has 100K anode and generally like a 2.7K cathode resistor. Whereas the Soldano, at least the first stage or so, uses a 220K anode and it's like a 1.8K. So it gets more gain, like a significant amount of gain, but it's also the response. And also the choice of resistors that Mike designed, or the capacitors, for shaving off low frequencies, the cathode bypass caps.
Mhm.
They add more gain on top of that, but they also shape the frequency response. And typically, Marshall will use like a 0.68 UF, and Mike's using like a 1 UF. And so that just, it's adding more bass, letting more bass through.
Mhm.
For reference, like Fenders oftentimes will use like a 22K or 22U. So they're boosting full frequency at that point. You're boosting all of the frequencies. Whereas, so a little bit of tube knowledge.
We're getting super nerdy now.
A little bit. So if here's the regular amount of gain that just a standard preamp gain stage has, and then you bypass the cathode cap, it's going to do this. It's going to give you a boost. And depending on how big the cap is, you're either getting a full boost or you're getting roll off and boost, which puts the emphasis. It's sort of like, you know how you can turn your treble down a little bit and turn the volume up, and it's like you turned your bass up, or vice versa. It's that same kind of thing. So
yeah,
because you're letting less low end through, the emphasis, the amp can reproduce those other frequencies more efficiently. So then it sounds like a different emphasis on the tone. With the Soldano, you've got a roll off down here, but with the Marshall, it's like a little it's like a little higher. So you've got more upper mid range and more low end rolling off.
That's what I was going to say with that. The 0.068 is just, when I did that to the Amelia, just instantly you could recognize a little bit more bump in that mid range. And that's exactly what it does.
Yeah, you're like, oh, there's that Marshall thing.
Yep.
So if I
can't go wrong with it, it's proven, it's tried and true.
Yep.
So if somebody like me wanted to change the HDM, like how fast it reacts, would you say like focus on like the because what the caps you're talking about were the depth knob, right? Basically in the power section, or is that a different set of caps?
Well, you could actually change your power amp caps, I think, and just have it reproduce less lows, but I don't think you want to do that. I think the way I try to think of it is, especially for guys like you who almost just need a solid state power amp, you really just want most, if not all, of what tone you get that you love is coming from your preamp.
Yeah.
And you just want the power amp to reproduce it cleanly, or minimal color, or just add a little bit of like glue to it. But you don't want it to like, if you listen to old classic rock records, live records, the amp, when there's no master volume, when you turn it up, it gets that fluty sound. Think it back to like Allman Brothers records, or you probably have never even heard this record, but there's a McCartney and Wings record, and it's Wings Across America, and it's like this great rock record from that era, and the guy is using like just an amp cranked up, and it has a great tone, but it's got like all this sustain and that sort of fluty tone, because now you're getting all this power amp distortion too. And you'll know that sound when you hear it, but that's not what you grew up as a guitar player listening to and liking. So you want less of that.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest issues is I'm using a more vintage designed amp for something it wasn't intended to do. Like I don't think Mike Soldano was listening to Periphery when he was designing the SLO.
Probably not. It's funny. Like most people would look at the Soldano and think of it. I don't think anybody would classify it as a vintage style amp. But then if you think about it, it's what, like 30 years old.
Yeah, 87.
That's the crazy thing about it. is that, that design is 30, 31 years old, and probably even more because he had the Yamaha TC series right before the SLO, which was kind of that same sort of thing. But yeah, it's in terms of how long it's been around, vintage, but still sort of modern in the same vein.
And that's the thing, is that it can be like a super aggressive modern sounding amp too.
Well, you remember that clip or that video that I sent you, that rack mount SLO that the guy was playing Dream Theater on? I think it was
vaguely.
Yeah, I mean, that sounded super crisp and super tight.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, I'm sure you guys have never heard of this band, but this is like one of like the trashy easy core bands I listen to. Chunk No Captain Chunk, their first record, I think, was recorded entirely on an SLO. And Joey Sturgis just made that thing sound amazing.
Like no boost in front of it or anything, or just like straight in?
I think I'm not 100% sure. And I could actually get the raw tracks. I'm not allowed to share them because I'm part of Nail the Mix, but I can try to take a listen to them and see what they sound like. But yeah, I know it was an SLO that they used them, and they're like in drop A, playing like super fast. Like, I mean, easy core is like happy metal, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, it's hilarious because it's just like this brutal sound, and there's like singing songs about friendship while screaming. But it's like, yeah, it's like literally like just this amazing sound. I always thought it was like a really good guitar sound, and then like of course it's like the SLO. It's like, oh well, geez. But then now like I want that sound out of the HDM. That's what I want. It's like I want to get that sound.
Yeah, you can get close to it. You really can.
Guys, so Tom Sosia is having a aneurysm.
Sorry, Tom. We see your chat. We get lost on our tangents.
Yeah. I would think you would increase. Yeah, and I don't know that you have to go crazy, increase all of them, but you might just play with it.
Bryce, you better put the question in context so you don't just.
Oh, so people know what I'm talking about?
Well, so I can't make any "that's what she said" jokes.
Oh, right. Yeah, I should. That's what she said. Proof my commentary. It's okay. She did say it. So, yeah, I don't think you want to go crazy because you can go too far the other way. Increasing your filter caps. If you lower the value of the filter caps, it does more of a spongy, vintagey kind of thing. And so if you raise those, you can certainly go the other way and make it tighter and snappier. But I think you want to play with your voltage too, not just the filter caps. But yeah, you could start. What I might try to do, usually it gets smaller as you go. She said it. So like as you look down your B plus node, your filter network, generally speaking in the power amp section, you might be looking at like multiple cans that are like 50 UH or even sometimes 100 UH. And then the further down you get, it could be, I want to say like 25 or 33. I think the 20 watters have like 33, maybe 40. It's like 47, 47, 33, 33. And it has a more vintage tone. So you could actually make it more modern sounding by increasing that. But honestly, now that I think about it, probably playing with your negative feedback too. I was actually going to do a negative feedback mod tonight, but I was coming in so hot trying to get everything set up. I was going to pre-drill the chassis so that I could just put the knob in.
Oh yeah, we were supposed to have that shootout, weren't we?
Yeah.
What was it? I think what was it, like a depth mod install, like timed run or something?
Yeah. Too funny. Anyway, I hope that answered the question. There's no like, there's some people who probably could give you a more articulate answer and would know exactly what to change, but I honestly don't. I don't usually mod that section of the amp that often. I was trying to learn all about power supply design a few years ago when I was designing the like Mega Sex drive, and
That amp needs to happen still.
I know. And so I was, lurking on all these forums and trying to find, like, how do you truly engineer a power supply like that? Like, what are the factors, and how do you, because there's a little bit of black magic in selecting the transformer, calculating your load lines, like all these things. There's some of that I get, figuring out like how many milliamps you need. What I was really interested in learning I think was about the output transformer, and how do you like look at a set of tubes and go do some calculations and go, this is the primary impedance that I need for the optimum sound. And I was getting sort of circular answers. And finally this super guru who he's on all the big forums, and if you ever see him, like, he's legendary. And he chimed in, and his response was like, many years ago, and it was like I had climbed the mountain and finally met the Zen master, and he goes, many years ago, men in white lab coats knew all the formulas and basically imparted this wisdom onto us. And those people are long gone. Nobody knows that magic anymore. So what we have,
you could say the same with tube manufacturers too. That's kind of the rumor that's going around, the same sort of logic.
For what?
For tube manufacturers, like EL34s specifically,
Yeah.
Like the old knowledge has just kind of died off, and we're left with kind of crap these days.
Mm-hmm.
But
I know all about that.
Like one really good source, but that's about it. But yeah, go. I didn't mean to interrupt your story, but yeah, same sort of thing.
No, but I was basically done. It was just the idea that
she said
back in the day, people knew what scientists basically, when this was cutting edge technology, figured all this stuff out on a chalkboard, mathematically using formulas and equations. And they knew, like, that's when they were writing the data sheets for defining what tubes look like, and the tube application manual, like all those things came from somewhere. Now you just have the manual, but all of that other like magic and knowledge that went into the designing of that book, it's dying away. People don't know it anymore, and people don't spend time thinking about it. It's a dying art.
Yeah.
But I was going to say earlier, when you were talking about the SLO being old,
Mm-hmm.
It still is pretty relevant, in large part because this technology doesn't really change
at all.
Like, nobody's innovating. Nobody's really doing anything super new. It's the same recipes, like, the same, the same recipes, maybe like overbuilt, or there's a whole slew of amps that are all doing the exact same thing. And I won't call them out by name,
Mm-hmm.
but I do a couple mods by at least one of them. And it's that California sound made popular by Jose Ardondo. All of those amps, that whole California wave of amps, it's that circuit. It's nothing magical. It's just literally verbatim the Jose. And I don't care. Fuck it, I'll just say it. You buy a Friedman, love a Friedman. They're awesome. You buy a Cameron, depending on the model.
Are
or a
Cameron's Jose 800s? I didn't know what they were. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, you like Cameron, Fortin, like some of those not all of them, obviously, because they tend to branch out. But the core, the thing that put them on the map, that Cali design, it's a Jose.
Yeah,
it's like 95% Jose. You know, it's like,
and that's the thing. It's like all preamp tweaks. I mean, power amps on all these amps are not really evolving, and well, preamps really aren't either. But it's just subtle tweaks from this company to this company to that company, and like Bryce said, it's the wheel is not being reinvented. It's just reshaping it a little bit.
Right.
It's just been recycled over decades and decades, which is fine because we're just getting different flavors of the same basic amp. But it really bothers me when there's new amp companies that come out and say that, oh, we got this brand new thing that's never been seen before, and you look at it and you see the circuits of it, and you're like, yeah, that's actually been around for quite a long time.
Yeah.
You know, you change one capacitor on it, and you claim it's your original design. That's not the same.
There are well-known companies that I just mentioned that release new amplifiers, and it's literally the same thing. In fact, I'll just paraphrase my BI mod and my PX variation of the BI mod. I don't know if I mentioned that mod very often, but
I've never heard you mention that one.
I've mentioned it, but it's a first name and a last initial.
I know. I have a good guess of what it is.
Okay, yeah. But it's the same circuit with like one tweak and a switch that does something different. One or two little optional switches. But, you know, there's another amp that is the same thing. I'm doing one right now. It's that sort of, I'll just call it the facelift. The facelifter.
You got my attention now.
Huh?
You got my attention now.
Okay.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
It's an HBI.
Yep.
Like 98%. That's all. You know, so it's the other thing is, I was going to mention this, the sex drive, the little sex drive.
Is yours little, Bryce?
This one is. Sometimes you need stealth, baby. Anyway, I was going to say that was more of a challenge for me to just do something that wasn't what everyone else was doing. So I mentioned it was 10 watts, but it actually uses these 6MB8 power tubes. And what's cool about them is they have, imagine a regular power tube that has a built-in triode. So it's got like a 12AX7 has two sides, right? It's a dual triode. Yeah. So it's got effectively two halves that can be used for different purposes. Well, these little power tubes have they have the same pinout of like it's a Novel pinout, like an EL84, but I see what you're typing there. Yeah, I was just trying to get you in the ballpark of the artist. Anyway, so these little, imagine a power tube that's kind of like an EL84 that has half of a preamp tube built into it also. So what I wanted to do was I was looking for a way to keep my tube count down because I didn't want to have to drill an extra tube socket hole. It's all it was.
10 seconds, bam, don't want to do it.
Yeah. And so it was this whole tipping point of trying to figure out all that stuff I just mentioned, like, okay, what power transformer can I use with these tubes, and how do I how do I bias them, and like all these questions, and I couldn't just look at a Marshall or some other design because nobody's fucking using them, you know. So I actually had to look at the data sheets and learn how to design a power amp, you know. It was pretty fun.
Bryce, I just figured out what the facelift thing was. I didn't get it at first. So, but
Yeah.
Soundgardener 75.
That's
Thanks,
real
I
lady.
thought facelift and dirt was primarily. I was like, facelift and dirt. Oh, I know that.
Yeah.
Orlando,
Yeah.
cheers,
I was-
buddy.
I was a little slow there. So I'm already done, guys. I'm on water now.
You don't have to drive anywhere though.
I
Bryce.
don't know.
Let's
Yes,
talk
sir.
about the what do you got going on your JCA 45?
Nothing right now. No, I've got it's sort of a trying to get towards a brown sound. It's not totally there yet. I've got a
It
bunch
really
of
wasn't when I had it either, but it was just I was starting, and I just kind of gave up after a while because I was
yeah. So I've got
on other things.
I've got big plans. It was funny. Like the other day, I put on Van Halen 1. We were cleaning on Sunday, and I was like, I don't think my kids have ever heard Van Halen cranked up, like Van Halen 1.
Yeah.
So I put it on, and they were totally digging it. And then I was just like, I should probably build a Van Halen amp. So I was thinking about using that, but I've got a set of Sozos and a set of CTS pots that are going to go in there. I was thinking about changing out all of the filter caps, but then I was like, fuck it.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll get around to that, you know. But it's on the back burner. Like seriously, I've got, let's see, 1 amp on the bench, 1 amp sitting next to it in a box, 1 amp in the man cave in a box, and literally 2 amps just showed up today. And then I have in front of that, well, I've got that weird little 5-watt project that I still need to get to. I have a couple other repairs. I've got my own 100-watter that I went HBI with it, but I need to fix the treble bleed, and I was having a tough time trying to get the original switching circuitry to work with a relay. It's got like lower voltage and it uses opto isolators. So I bought some new opto isolators, and I'm going to add another one of those to the circuit, but I have to get around to it. But speaking of that amp, I'm thinking about VH4 in the overdrive channel. I just did one for a guy, and it's so good. It's really good. So I never get a chance to record these amps because, you know, it's a production line basically.
Yeah.
That's the part where you send them over to me for science, and then I'll send them off to the customers.
Yeah. Well, that guy was like, you need to find a way to record this thing. And I'm like,
Hold on, I'll be right back. I'm going to get something.
okay.
All
I'm
right.
like, well, it turns out I know the owner. So,
Oh, really?
well, he's a customer. He's a local guy.
Oh, okay.
And so I was like, maybe he'll let me borrow it and I can get some clips with it.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It's kind of hard because like going back to my HDM, like I want to do a video on it, but like it's hard to choose between all the mods that you have. Like I need to buy like 3 more HDMs just so I can have.
Yes,
all of them.
Tom, I think it's off top of my head. I think the max dissipation of the 6MB8 is like 7 or 8 watts. I think.
Ralph Nader Chop, you say you have 0 recording equipment. I have too much. I will share. I'm just looking through the chat here.
Yeah.
Somebody had an interesting question. It's from Jim JC Flanagan. So if no one's reinventing the wheel, where do you see the possibility of the next jump in design?
Honestly, I think it's already here, and I think it's just digital. I don't think from my limited knowledge, I really don't think there's going to be any sort of new advancements with vacuum tube circuitry as it applies to guitar amplifiers.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to see some tweaks here and there like we've been seeing over the years. We've been seeing a lot more of it because new companies that are starting up and getting into it, but I don't think there's anything that's going to be – I don't think it's really going to evolve into anything new. I think just the digital thing is going to eventually take over, and maybe it's a little like 10 years or something. But
what I was going to say – oh, go ahead. Sorry. I thought you were done.
No, go ahead. You're fine. Yeah.
What I was going to say is I don't really know so much like sound-wise how much different things are going to be because, like everything's done. Like if you want like a dry, tight, high gain sound, you go for like a Framus Cobra or something. If you want like that wet, tight sound, you go like 5150. If you want it loose, you go Recto, stuff like that.
Wet and loose. This is what you go for.
Oh, I should have thought about that before I said it. It's too late. But no, I was gonna say like not so much like the sound things, but I would say like the feature set on amps and stuff, I think is what's going to keep advancing, like multi-channels.
Like what he's doing with his amps and everything that he's integrating it to make
I'm sorry, who'd you say?
Kyle Rhodes, KSR.
Oh, Rhodes. Yeah, KSR. Yeah.
I mean, he's keeping everything modern, and the guy is just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah,
makes killer sounding amps, a lot of modern features on them too that keep them all relevant.
That's who I
future-proof amplifiers for tube amps.
Yeah, that's who I look to as like the cutting edge of like what an amp could be with still being like a tube amp. That and like the Huser Kettner Triamp, like that thing's insane. 6 channels, and like you can swap all of the power tubes, like, and it's just all self-contained. Like that thing's nuts. And like it's full. It's like it's got like 127 presets you can save to it. Yep. Like and then you have things like the Rev Generator. And I mean these amps, like they're expensive, but they're not insane.
They're not, but even if you look at something like the I'm going to say it, the Invective, this is basically a MIDI controlled 5150.
Yeah.
For all intents and purposes. I mean, that's a great way to modernize that amp into the
kind
of the next generation,
Yeah, completely. That amp, that's another thing. Like that amp has a ton of really cool features. Like I thought the pedal power supplies on the back, like that's genius. Why hasn't anybody done that before? Like you just set your pedals on top of the amp, run them in the loops and stuff. It's fully MIDI controlled, and like all you have to bring is basically your amp head to the show.
Yeah. Well, it's great, especially if there's guys that just throw noise gates on their amps, set it right on top, plug it in, good to go, Well,
it's got a noise gate built into it too. Like this thing, you don't even need that anymore. You don't need your tube screamer. Like that amp has basically nullified the entire metalhead's like pedal board. Besides like a reverb and a delay.
Yeah.
I think there's still room for tubes. And I think you're going to see people trying to do hybrid approaches, like a marriage of digital and analog. Like, I mean, you see people like the new tube. Sounds pretty good, but it's much lower gain than the 12X7, and it's microphonic. What?
Was it Vox that came out with that, or they're using?
Yeah, Vox Korg.
Okay.
And then the retro valve. I pointed back there, but I don't have one. Jet City. Wait. Anyway, retro valve. there've always been people kind of playing with solid state. I mentioned the Rockman stuff. That was a great sounding preamp.
Oh yeah.
Didn't care about tubes for about 5 years.
And so many guys use those in the recording studio. It's just like in parallel with their tube amps back in the day too. You know,
Oh,
Dude,
yeah.
the PVXXL I had.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that thing.
oh yeah, I had one too. I had a couple of those. Yeah.
Yeah, remember that blind shootout I sent you guys? What was it? It was the 5150, the HDM, the B52, and the XXL and the Hotone. And you guys like, I think the Hotone and the XXL were like spots 2 and 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Like from all of you guys.
But I was going to say, I think you'll start to see more people integrating digital. You know, as like you've got tubes, but maybe you've got a digital preamp that can, instead of having, you know, digital presets with multiple emulated patches, what if it just reconfigured the circuitry? I've seen some of that before, but I think you'll probably see more of that. I was designing an amp that was going to have, this was like 5 years ago, I wanted to have motorized pots, MIDI control. Oh, there's a cat. This cat is rad. She's hardcore. Like, I will start playing the guitar, and she'll come and lay down next to the amp and start purring. And we have this other cat. He's an asshole. Just like,
As most cats are.
right.
Yes.
But like he will run out of the room. But this one likes it. She's like a shop dog, you know?
Yeah, dude. One of my dogs, the white one, she will like lay her head right up against my speaker cab whenever I'm playing. I'm like, what are you doing?
Soaking up the 5K.
Yeah, right.
Too funny.
Well, the Avatar has no 5K. It drops off at 3.
Korg is Vox. Yeah, I think they own. Somebody owns somebody. I think Korg bought Vox is what happened. Vox is one of those brands that like is a brand that's been ridden more than the Village Bike. You know what I mean? Like so many people have had their way with Vox.
Yeah.
Somebody.
About the same as it was 4 or 5 decades ago.
There was Ralph Naderchop was talking about
Trousers.
the trouser snake thing. He's talking about the pedal snake.
Right.
Have you guys heard of that thing? I asked him what it was. He said it sends return power MIDI all in one cable. Have you guys heard
That's
of
what
that?
I was going to mention. Part of that design, I was going to have motorized pots, and I was like, then you could store your amp settings and your effects loop settings with MIDI and have more flexibility with your switching. And then I was like, what if it was Bluetooth and you had a wireless foot pedal, you know?
So
And then I was like, oh my God, what if it was just the wireless foot pedal part? You know, and you could plug it into whatever pedal board you had that had MIDI and put the receiver by your amp, and then you don't need a MIDI cord.
so it's a tri-amp. That's what.
Well, that's kind of what isn't Line 6 kind of implementing that Bluetooth thing with their amps too?
Yeah.
You know, that's kind of, I don't really want to say that's like an evolution, because I mean, it's already lower end consumer technology that's just being integrated into current amplifiers, which is something that I guess we could have predicted, that sort of integration of, you know, Bluetooth, like you can dial up your tones from your phone and all that and just send that right to your amp. Like, for example, I've got that TC Electronic flashback reverb, or Hall of Fame reverb pedal, and it's, you know, you can beam different settings.
Dude, that is so cool.
That is
Yeah.
cool.
I love that. I did it.
Until you go to a gig and you got another guy that has that app and then tries to screw your shit up.
Right. Puts the Korg Miku tone.
Yeah. But I see more like Bryce said, more of that digital integration, more of kind of the consumer level technology that we're seeing. It's not really anything groundbreaking, but a lot of stuff that we're seeing that we're using with our phones, that's going to come into play. But I don't know, maybe it'd be nice to see the return of like hybrid amps, like a really badass preamp tube section, and then it's just a clean solid state amp, like the older PV Classics, like the very first ones that came out. I think those were preamp,
Yeah.
two preamp and solid state power amp, right?
Well, Music Man was doing that too. I think
Yeah.
maybe they were doing it the other way around though. They had, but yeah, Lab Series was a great sounding solid
Oh
state.
yes.
Randall made a ton of them. Like we listened to every Pantera record.
You know, it's interesting. Like it's kind of the segue into the new Synergy amps.
Mhm.
That's based on the old Randall RT, what is it, RTS or RTM series that they had.
Which are based on the Seymour Duncan.
The convertible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, like the card slot thing that they had.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting that they're still going with a tube power amp on there. And with as versatile as you can get on preamps, and you can really change your sound, I kind of would have thought that you'd make it simpler by just having even just a basic MOSFET power amp, you know?
Yeah. Well, you can get like there's a Russian company that makes an IR loader. They have a range of like IR pedals and whatnot, like emulated. So they just took the chip and they made it available for general consumption. So you can buy this chip. It's like $70 or something. And my plan, I'm going to buy one and basically use it as a direct line out of my amp. And so, instead of just having like a cab sim output, then you've got like a speaker IR simulated output that just sounds good no matter what you plug it into.
Yeah.
To your point earlier, you're talking about things are going that direction with consumer level stuff. Think about like smaller amps and practice amps. They've kind of always been doing that with like headphone outputs. No pro is going to buy an amp with a headphone. Dude, I got the new Mesa Boogie quad rack. Got a headphone out.
If it's Mesa, it's gonna be like a 6-tuple rack at least.
Yeah.
It needs like at least 43 switches.
Yeah. Too funny.
So, Frank Alexander's asking if the JCA 50H is discontinued. It's not listed. No. Yeah, I didn't think so. He said it's not listed on Amp Factory. I think Doug just lists what he has in stock at the moment, right?
Here's the way that works.
What typically happens is like once or twice a year, everybody gets in a frenzy saying that, oh my God, are these amps discontinued because they're not seeing them on either Musician's Friend or Amp Factory or whatnot. And it's just basically they're just waiting on the shipments to come in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
50H is a huge seller for Jet City, so there's no way that amp's going to be going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they're still out there. It's just waiting on them to basically come into port, and they just go to the distributors and all that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like he said Amp Factory. Okay, I thought never mind. I don't know what I'm saying.
I was gonna say the way the Amp Factory stuff works is the big box stores will commit to a bunch of orders and pay for them in advance. So then he has them made and shipped over, and he has some extras made and shipped. And then he warehouses them. So he'll go and he'll pick up some and bring them. So that's the Amp Factory stuff. So whenever you see like, oh, I'm out of stock, you're waiting till the next shipment comes by.
Yep, exactly it. But even though like some of the merchants or distributors will say that they're discontinued, that's not necessarily true, because I see it on Musician's Friend all the time. I'll research it when somebody posts to the Jet City group saying, well, Musician's Friend said that this is discontinued or that's discontinued. I'll go and look at it. They might say that, but that that's just another word or another phrase for them to say that they're just out of stock right now.
Right.
But it's just as far as I know, anything that's current on Jet City's catalog, I don't think anything is really discontinued. Everything that they've been rolling with for the last few years is, excuse me, still very much in production.
Yep.
Resurgence of the 100 watt, that looks like that's been a pretty good seller. I haven't talked to Doug about the numbers and how well it's been selling, but it looks like it's been pretty popular, and that's something that might be permanent. I don't know. I'd like it to be.
Are you talking about the LTD?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I love the look of that thing.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like the one that has white knobs.
Yeah, that's actually
the white on white.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, so if I had mine,
until I saw the PV Invective, aren't they kind of on that scheme too? Luke?
yeah, PV. I'm actually on the PV Invective Facebook group right now. I would be a part of that.
Like literally right now.
Like literally right now. Like I could share my screen, because the designer posted. I got a notification for it. But yeah, it's white on white. I think that's a really cool look. And if I got mine, I guess it'd be white on white on white. At that point, I just need a white baffle.
Jesus,
it's like you're gonna get snowblind, dude, and burn out all your rods and cones.
It's actually kind of a pain on. It's like a blessing and a curse on video, because whenever I like shoot YouTube videos, it's like really easy to white balance things because you have a large white object like you can easily white balance with, but then like it's also overexposed at that point. You're like, oh, I can't do anything with the video.
Contrast on it, yeah, to make it really pop.
Yeah, no,
you
it's
could do like a mask and only white balance what's in the mask, and then do like a different green screen yourself, and then white balance that differently.
So I'm still learning Final Cut. I'm not that fancy. I don't even have a green screen. So I'm making a video out of
carbon fiber train. You need to get that going.
Yeah, but I don't. I need like a metal grill so you can see the. I need a metal grill so you can see the lights. So yours are lame because you don't have flashing lights.
No,
yeah,
his
but
are epic.
I'm also not 21 years old, so.
Yeah, you're what? In your 40s?
Yeah, I feel like it. Yeah.
Hey man, watch it now.
Oh, it's okay, Grandpa.
Oh, it's Grandpa status now.
Oh well, once you have a heart attack,
well, yeah,
it's a fair game.
Too
funny.
So okay, well, since we're on that subject, Bryce, how long has it been? It's been well over a year, right?
Now July.
Yeah, I remember I remember the day that happened because I was in Vermont on vacation.
Oh, you were stoned out of your mind or something.
No, I wasn't. No, like Hunter and I, we were like, I think we were just like talking, and then we realized eventually like you hadn't talked to us in like a good 2 days, and we were like, "Where's Bryce?
Where's Papa?
Where's Pap at?"
Yeah, I Facebooked from the recovery room. I was like, I just posted, "I live." It's pretty funny.
Ralph,
I don't know if I told you guys about this, and we're veering way off topic, but like, I was out of my mind when I was having that thing, and I got to the ER, and the guy was like, they're gonna go in through my wrist and put a stent in, and the guy goes, 1 second, I'm just gonna listen to your heart, and so I'm on some morphine by that point, and so he comes in, and he's listening to it, and I'm like, is it calling for you? And he's like, was that a Roxette joke? And I'm like, yeah, sorry.
That's great. Ralph Naderchop waiting for live PD to show up at Bryce's house. Bryce, you want to explain what you got going on at your house later?
Hold on.
I don't know what what live PD is.
Live PD? What? Okay, what? Say that again?
Ralph Naderchop says waiting for live PD to show up at Bryce's house.
Basically,
Police
it's
departments?
Cops, but it's live, literally live, and it's like the best show ever.
Wait, what is it?
It's like the show Cops, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's live.
Oh.
They follow 7 different counties Friday and Saturday
no.
night every week. And yeah, when you get old like me and Bryce probably, that's what you do on your Friday and Saturday nights is that you watch live PD.
Right.
Oh, see, I just watch pre-recorded YouTube videos on Friday and Saturday nights because I'm lame.
No, that's smart.
You guys remember? Maybe you don't, Luke.
I wasn't
Most
born yet.
extreme elimination challenge.
Wait, what was it?
What was it called? Something like most extreme elimination challenge.
Like on Spike, like the Japanese overdubs?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
dude!
Oh, yeah.
My god, my cousin and we used to watch those all the time.
Yeah.
Just crying, laughing.
Right, you are, Ken.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Ralph, Tom Sosha, as a former Guitar Center employee and thus part of musicians' friends, their inventory system has been stupid for decades. I'd like to hear input on the invective in that case, because that literally just got to stores.
He said former.
Well, maybe he can tell me anyway. Maybe he's dealt with PV in the past. Soundgardener 75. I'm a recent convert to JCA. I almost got a Wang's rig. Kale knows this too well. And then good thing my friend lent me his JCA 20 HV. He was looking for a cab. Okay, so what's the deal with Wang's? Because I don't know much about them, but they look like a knockoff brand of I can't think of it right now. Are they like a cheap Chinese company?
Wangs.
They
Yeah.
are. I think they're. I forget the origins of that, but yeah, they're like a JCM 8. I think they started off as like a JCM 800 knockoff sort of thing, but I think maybe they were hand wired, maybe, but or maybe they have got like a lower voltage version of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they look like the Ignator tweakers. That's what I'm thinking of. They look exactly like that.
Bayang.
We used to shit on them when we were back when Harmony Central was in its heyday. We used to shit on that company because, first of all, the name, you're opening a lot of flack. I mean, come on. But
Hey, check out my big Wang.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we all thought it was just like a knockoff company that was just copying other designs, other schematics, whatnot. But, you start to read the reviews of it, and some dudes actually really like it. And so I've never heard one in person, never played one, so I can't really attest to that. But I don't know. It's not something that you see at Guitar Center, Musician's Friend, anything like that. But some dudes like it. Some people just pass it off.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I really can't say anything about it. I don't know.
I never I never gave them any attention aside from the fact of, oh, it looks like an Ignator tweaker. I'd rather get that.
Yeah. I think it's more Marshall based, but I don't know if there's anything tweaked on that circuit. I think it's just basically that basic JCM 2203, 2204 circuit stuffed in a smaller head shell,
Bryce, Ralph Naderchop again. He says he'll trade his kidney failure for your heart attack.
Oh, Jesus.
I've got a heart attack too.
Yeah, that's a rough one, man. Getting old sucks.
Let's talk about kidney stones. Who's coming up on one?
I
Not
kind
I.
of hope nobody.
Ugh.
I had a friend. Here's the little bastard. This guy's an asshole.
Oh, that's the
He
dick.
looks like it.
Yeah,
It looks like he just hates the world.
he does. Like gives zero shits.
He's like, why are you not serving me right now?
Totally.
So my door's closed, otherwise my dogs would be in here. The puppy likes to decide to just like climb up on you at the most inopportune times and say hi.
It's a
Naturally.
dog, so it's
So-
okay.
Well, yeah, but it gets old when she does it like 5 times in a row.
No, it doesn't.
Tom, I have to approve your comment.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, what is that?
I think we've got like an automatic like
Censorship.
like an automatic moderator thing on the
Yeah.
chat.
Yeah.
George Carlin rule in effect.
Ralph Nader chop again. This guy's killing it. Mesa is rehashing old PV sale tactic. What do you mean? What are they doing? Oh, can we talk about Mesa? You guys know
All
how
right.
much I love my Mesas.
Oh boy, we want to talk about Mesa. I mean, what else can we said?
I'll talk about him for a second.
Okay,
Yeah,
what do you got to
just
say?
I think it's
Mesa.
awesome.
There you go.
Okay. That guy started his business by doing mods, right? And then building his own sort of clones of Fenders, modded Fenders.
Mhm.
But he's like this notorious patent whore. Like he'll sit there and just try to file any kind of patent for things that he didn't invent, just that nobody had patented them yet, like, which is a total dick move because you have all these people that are already doing it.
Mhm.
So his tactic is he'll just file bulk patents, and yet if somebody is doing something that is remote, like, oh, I was going to say it, and then he turned around and blatantly stole the SLO 100,
Mhm.
like that first single
Even the
rectifier.
for the dead giveaway on it.
Yeah. So it's just, I will never buy another Mesa product. That is just the
It's
slimiest.
not a rectifier. I really like the Mark series for what they are, but the rectifier series I just never could get along with. Aside
There's a
from
bunch of their stuff that I like. I just, at this point, I won't support it.
Yeah, based on that, sure, I completely understand that.
The rectifier series is an interesting thing for me because just the time that I grew up with those amps being introduced in like the early 90s, every band I listened to growing up, everybody's using the dual rectifier. So like there were no other amps. Like that was the sound. And like it's so weird because on all of these records, like it's just this huge wall of guitars, and it's like this thing you can never achieve. But
Right.
then when I play one, like I found it really disappointing. Like, don't get me wrong, like it's still a good amp, but it's not like a great amp like I'd expect it to be. And as like my tastes have refined, like I don't really like it for the type of music I play.
Oh,
Like
exactly.
I will say the multi-watt on the vintage mode is a really cool sound.
It is.
Like that is a cool sounding amp, but
Still not quite your vibe though.
I don't know, because I actually really dug it. Like on the vintage mode, I think it's supposed to be closer to the older style rectifiers, which would make sense because it's basically more like the SLO at that point, which is close to the 5150, which is what I like.
Actually,
Can I go on an old man rant for a second?
Oh
yeah.
boy, here we go.
I'm not really asking. I'm just going to do it. You know what I hate is when people in this day and age still call it a rectum fryer.
Yes.
It's just not funny anymore. Like it was funny like the first time I heard it, but now I just think of like that's
Well,
like
when you were Luke's age, yeah, it was hilarious.
right.
I still find it funny, but I'm 12, so
Well, yeah, and I just think like, okay, a mouth breather, like.
so Tom, just so Tom knows, we're not talking about you specifically, Tom.
Did
He
you
said
say
that in
rectum
the chat.
fryer?
Yeah, he said that in the chat right as you started talking about that.
You can't help it. It's a reflex.
Didn't he say he's from Harmony Central?
Yeah.
Yeah, that explains it.
Yeah, he's an OG.
I totally forgot what I was saying. No, so like I have a love-hate relationship with that amp because it's not a bad amp at all. Like I know like in our group chat I give Hunter so much crap about that amp just because it's his favorite, and well, that's what I do because I'm a dick. Um, but like it's not a bad amp. It's just not like my thing, which is weird because it's like the sound I grew up on. Like, and even still, a lot of my favorite bands, the dual rectifier, that's what they use.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, new metal, basically triple rectifier or dual rectifier and a PRS custom 24
Mhm.
was the sound, 15, 20 years ago.
But
But
even like the pop punk stuff, my
it is
favorite.
a good studio amp. It's a good studio amp. Like even Mark Tremonti makes that amp sound fucking phenomenal. It's amazing how he makes those things sing. But I still don't like the triple rec. It's just a little bit too flubby and loose and I don't know, fuzzy on that low end, but it has its place maybe because it's hitting the right frequencies.
Yeah, and
Maybe
that's like I guess my only complaints about the amp itself are that like it's too flubby in the low end, which as you guys know, that's like the number one thing I look for in an amp. Like if it's not tight, I'm not buying it. Like if it can't gent, then I don't want it. And then like just how hard it is to dial in. Like it's such a frustrating experience trying to get that amp dialed in correctly.
It is. It really is. Because like I think I sent you and Bryce a link a few weeks ago of an old clip from my band a few years ago, and
Mhm.
I had JCA 100H going through a 212 with V30s, and
Mhm.
then my singer slash rhythm guitarist had his triple rec going through a G Flex cab, and just I never could get along with the tone that he had,
Mhm.
and it conflicted so much with mine, even though the preamp section, as we've talked about many times before, is pretty similar.
Mhm.
You know,
Actually,
but
this, I hate to keep dogging on Mesa and the amp and stuff, but Bryce, do you know what causes an amp like that to be so hard to dial in since it's so similar to SLO?
Sorry, what? No, I heard you.
Oh.
I mean, it's an amp is a sum of its parts, right? And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just it could just be like it sounded great on the bench, and then in production they had they had to cut corners on parts or something to get it to, so like I can tell you that just changing out the pots in your Jet City amp will make it sound better, or
yes.
just changing out the caps.
Yeah.
People they go like, what mod should I do? I don't know. And I'm like, upgrade your caps. And then you'll hear what it sounds like,
Yep.
So it's hard to say, like, it could just be they cut costs and are using some cheap parts, and that's what makes it that way. It could also be that their amp designer chose a bad combination of like tone stack, and oftentimes too, like an amp like Mesa, they do a lot of, I think of it as cheating, where they will use a lot of snubber caps to sort of roll off their high frequencies to prevent oscillation, because Randall still lays out his printed circuit boards
by hand
with like,
which I think that's actually a really cool touch.
It's totally
honestly.
cool.
Yeah.
But it's the situation where I feel like they compensate for design and stability in their amps by adding a ton of snubber caps. So if you ever plug into a Mesa and go, whoa, it's kind of dark sounding. You ever done that? Like,
no, I've usually found them to be pretty bright, honestly.
I'm thinking of like, maybe the one I'm thinking of is like the 550 Express.
Oh yeah, that one is. I have played that one. I've played like their entire lineup, and yeah, that one is pretty dark.
Yeah, that's why. So
okay.
So to me, it's like their circuits might not be very different from other circuits, but there's no real good answer for that.
Okay.
But maybe there's something you could do to sort of lift the clouds from your tone a little bit. No,
Transformer upgrade.
Yeah. So I plugged in the sex drive real quick.
Uh-huh.
I forgot I had it on because my Juul light burned out.
Oh.
I actually left it on for 3 days one time. I need to get the I was like, holy shit. How long's it been on? I was like, it was hot. Hotter than hot. The sex drive. That's a stock. That's actually a JCM 800, a JCA stock speaker. I pulled it out of my 112 and stuck it in there.
Like the 100-watt one?
Maybe.
Sure. Yeah.
Sounds good. It's 100 watts.
Yeah.
Bryce, you might want to try turning it down a little bit. I think there's like a limiter or something on the live stream audio. It's
really?
it's like getting all warbly.
That's how it sounds.
Volume and bitrate just keeps.
Oh, okay. Is that just like is the tremolo filter you put in there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I've got like a high pass filter on.
Gotcha.
Really
so
high.
it's the sex drive tremoverb.
Yeah. That's a bummer. It sounds hella good.
Jesus, Kevin. Is that the Fire Horse mod?
Yes.
Dude, that sounds like, I mean, I know I'm listening like through the room, through your cell phone, through YouTube compression and out my headphones, but it sounds good from what I can hear.
It's kind of good. I love it, man. I really do.
So I keep asking Bryce if it'll gent, and he never actually gives me a straight up answer.
Yeah, I said
that was a Alter Bridge clip, by the way, off their very first album. Forget what song it was.
Oh, that shows how much I know.
Yeah.
So, I guess while we're playing guitar, I don't think I showed you guys. I'm in the session right now. But I told you guys like the difference that volume makes on your cab, like when recording. It's gonna cut off my mic, but I'll play like the original IR first, and then I'll do like the same position with like the louder volume. You like hear like listen to like the low end, like how just like deeper it sounds. So here's the original. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not, but like
it sounds like it sounds awesome.
Both Bryce and I are just like, yeah, this is very scientific. We're gonna check this out.
No, it sounds like it sounds awesome in the room, but to me, it sounds like you're like a deck of cards going.
Oh, really?
That's actually a good way of describing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought maybe like the audio quality would be better over these live streams, but it seems to be pretty terrible.
little bit of versatility on the Amelia there.
Yeah.
So,
Like it.
Bryce,
Right.
tell us. Ralph Naderchop says, I've never watched any YouTube live stream this long. Be honored. Oh, thanks, Ralph.
Aw.
Aw. You're going to make me smile and feel something.
Like a boner.
Oh my God.
Sure. Yeah.
So Bryce, what would you like describe the Fire Horse as? Like if you could compare it to other amps.
It's kind of unique.
Yeah,
The
it
amp
really is.
itself is pretty unique. It's kind of weird actually. If you look at the schematic, there's a lot of things where you're like, and I think that the way they drew it up, it's sort of intentionally, it's like looking at a riddle, you know? Or actually the way I described it best was it's like looking at a
A lot of
MC
shit
Escher.
that doesn't need to be there is actually how you described it to me. Well, the original schematic, but yeah, it's a lot of it. Actually, I think it borrows a lot from Marshall. Just your standard Marshall schematic, and then it just kind of goes off from there. But you know,
It goes really crazy. It really is like looking at an MC Escher painting, the way the schematic is drawn. But they do weird things like the first two gain stages are shared by both the clean and the overdrive channel, and they're set for a lot of gain. But then they have these voltage dividers in between that do a lot of weird stuff, and I'm like, I've never seen anything like that before. And part of what I did in the Firehorse mod was just like rip most of that shit out.
So basically, Firehorse is nothing like Amelia at all.
No, I mean it's
well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it's not. We're not rewiring the circuitry at all. We're just changing a lot of the values.
Gotcha.
yeah. Whereas some of the other mods that I do, the Friedman stuff, there's one that I have that allows you to move the effects loop. You're like rewiring the circuit basically to a degree. But I do it I think in kind of a clever way. So it's pretty clear. Like a lot of times, like you see on the net, do people still call it the net?
No, Grandpa.
The
Okay.
interwebs with a
The
Z.
interwebs. On the AOL machine, you'll see
Back to your pigeon carriers.
yeah,
Yes.
it'll say like cut the trace, and I'm like, you don't need to cut the trace. You can just
Yeah, you and I talked about that. Just rotate your pot and then reverse the wires.
exactly. Yep. It's funny. Intar web nets. Yep.
So I don't know if you guys want to see what I talked to Bryce about this a little bit, but Luke, I don't know if I talked to you about it, but this was kind of what I'm working on here.
Is that your Serotone?
It is. This is the 2204. This is hand wired,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been kind of tossing around different ideas of what to do with it because I didn't know what my goals really were, but I found something that really kind of captures, I think, what I want my end result to be. So. Lee Jackson actually posted some tutorials weeks ago about what he did for like George Lynch and Steve back in the 80s. And we're adding another preamp tube on there and then a tube buffer effects loop and a couple other cap changes and all that sort of stuff. So I think that's what I'm going to turn this into. So as of what I've got right now, I messed around with the input stage a little bit and I added a post-phase inverter master volume. I think that master volume is going to go out in favor of the other mods I'm going to do, but I don't know if I really want to drill into this chassis. This thing's beautiful. It's laid out really well. It was really well built, but I mean, it's got room for it.
So, Ralph Naderchop, you were talking about Lee Jackson. He's asking Lee Jackson of Crate fame. Did he have something to do with Crate?
Yeah, he designed the Blue Voodoo.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
So is that why that amp sounds good and terrible simultaneously?
Yeah.
Blue doo-doo?
Yeah. So that amp gets so much hate.
It does.
Like-
I think most of it's traced back to just cheap components.
Well, because some
Circuitry
people seem to love it, and then some are like they hate it.
There's a lot of models though. Like the 60-watt version of it is just total dog shit.
But I'm
And you
talking
can say
like
the same thing with like the Marshall TSL 60, which I've had in and serviced before, and it's just utter crap.
I'm talking more like the 300 and the 120, the ones that are actually built in St. Louis.
Oh yep, the good ones.
You know
I
what were
feel-
killer amps? Were those Ampeg VL501s or whatever they were?
502s and all those, yeah, those are killer.
They're so good, and they had like a pop machine key, you know, those
Yes.
round keys with a
Even the Lee Jackson's brand has those too.
yeah, that's killer because you're like fuck you can't touch my tones, and you just lock people out.
Yeah, I replaced a buddy of mine locally. He's got a Lee Jackson XLA 1000. I think it's an XLA 1000, and he had his Molex connectors go
Yep,
out on
it
it.
is.
So I basically converted it to hardwiring, and he's got that little key lock thing on there, which is it's weird and cool at the same time.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I always thought like, what happens when you lose it? Not
You
if,
gotta throw the
but
amp
when.
away. You obviously can't use it.
Yeah, because it's like whenever I get a guitar case that locks and has that little key, or even the combo lock, I'm like, well, that's never gonna get set.
Yeah, just bring bolt cutters with you, and you're good to go.
Yeah, I was watching
You know-
this Dave Grohl video or something, and he was talking about this guy. They were auditioning a guitar player.
oh, I know exactly what video you're talking
Hear this
about.
one?
Yeah.
So the guy shows up at this studio and he's like, "Oh my God, I'm your biggest fan." Blah blah blah. And they were like, he's like, "Sign my nipple" or whatever. And then he went out and he bought a brand new guitar for the audition, and he locked it and didn't remember the code or something.
Oh no!
So there he is, like the most important moment of his life, and he just couldn't get in. And Dave's like, "Well, bummer, man. Like,
Jeez.
that's too bad."
That's just how you know that like life's telling you it's not destined to be.
Yeah.
Like,
I guess.
no,
Either
you're not
that or
going to
you
play in
just
Foo
really
Fighters.
fucked up the best opportunity of your life.
Oh yeah. Soundgarden they're talking about the Crate Stealth. I looked it up, and it might be one of the ugliest amps I've ever seen. Something about like those giant head shells, and then like the tiny like mini mixer knobs,
Like the
from,
MXR
the early
style
90s.
teeny
Yeah.
tiny.
Like
Yeah.
like no, like the ones you find on like a
Not the
mixer
best
desk.
time for
It's an
style.
optical illusion. It looks huge. I have no idea what accent that was.
You got to think like what amp companies were thinking in like the 90s.
That
Like-
was just what was in, like neon and all that sort of weird shit. I mean,
But why the little knobs? Like it
Yeah.
looks so disproportionate.
well, you got to think of it like the '90s were like succeeding the '80s, and you know the ride of cocaine was just kind of up here, and it kind of went down a little bit, and so that residual effect kind of went into design of everything. So that's what we're left with.
Ralph, who was talking about the carpet, Soundgardener 675. I had a Crate 412 loaded with Celestians that had that carpet on it, and it was like an early one. It actually sounded really good, but like after a while, Crate started sucking more, and I had all this legit other gear. Like at one point, I was running a Mesa Triaxis and a Stereo 290 power amp, and I had this Crate carpet head or carpet 412. So I wound up I worked at Sears, and I stole a sign from the Home and Garden Center. It said shredder, from like a chipper shredder or something.
Yeah.
And so I stuck it on the front of my 412.
Nice.
Good times.
Yes. Do you remember when Luke, you'll appreciate this. When Avatar, when they first went into business, their cabs were fully carpeted.
Oh,
and
no.
Speakers had like their own little coverings over each little speaker. You should Google it and check it out. I mean, they were weird back then, but
no. So you're missing a whole like 20 years when they actually looked like crates.
Well, is that what it was?
That's why they're called crate. They were wooden.
Kale's talking about Avatar cabs.
Oh yeah, those.
I thought he said when crate first went into business.
Oh no, I know about the crate.
Up like it was either late 90s or early 2000s. They were fully carpeted and just dog shit cheap.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yeah.
I got a serious question for you. Have either one of you two ever even remotely been interested in buying a pig nose amp?
I forgot those existed.
Me, no. It's just not. I don't know enough about them to really give you a solid answer. But from what I think I know, probably not. I don't know.
They're like the original Zinky.
Oh, like those, like the cigarette things, the cigarette box things. Okay.
They sounded pretty good. Actually, they had a 40-watt tube amp that sounded killer.
Yeah. What was it loaded with?
Huh?
What's it loaded with? Like a step down 6L6 thing, or
I don't care about speakers. I don't know.
Yeah. No.
No, I think it had 6L6s. Could be wrong though.
Okay.
It was pretty cool. It had a lot of gain, I remember.
Yeah. Is it like a wood box sort of thing, or is that what the head shell was?
What?
Was the head shell just like like a stained wood box, kind of like a train wreck, or am I thinking?
No, actually, I think it was. I think you're picturing the right thing in your mind, but it was I think it was like a wine-colored Tolex.
Okay. I know the logo. I know I can recognize the logo. I just didn't remember exactly what they looked like.
Man, Ralph Naderchop is like a wealth of historical information. Is that Eric Sue?
Yeah, Eric's in here somewhere. I saw him earlier.
Eric, is that you?
No, Ralph Naderchop is not Eric.
The Jet City historian.
Yeah. It's his birthday, so he's probably.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Well, happy birthday, Eric.
Kale, is this the cab you're talking about? Is like this middle one right here?
No.
It's not covered in carpet, but what?
I know. Look at the speaker grills on there, how they're on each speaker.
Yeah, no, it's pretty hideous.
Instead of Tolex, we're talking black carpet.
Yeah, no, this is like part of their unfinished series, but I can imagine carpet on that. That's a shame because
that like when Gibson purchased Kramer. No, I'm sorry. Right before Gibson purchased Kramer guitars, when they were sold under the Music Yo brand, Avatar first started out, and yeah, they were funky looking, but they were functional.
Because like Avatar makes some gorgeous cabs.
They do.
Like, I mean, that is a gorgeous cab.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is their signature series, and like I love like the little like drop down logo thing.
Yeah.
I love the way it looks.
Why do you have a baby
video that I shared with you guys a few weeks ago of my band? With the Avatar cab I had was basically the Bogner style traditional 212, and that was a great cab.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the Avatar cab. I just prefer the diamond one just for the sound.
Are the speakers exactly the same in both of them?
Yeah, they're both vintage 30s, but they sound so different.
Yeah, Well, I mean, someone's going to bring up the argument of Chinese made versus English made vintage 30s. So do you know
They're both Chinese made.
That's good. So okay.
Yeah, I don't like. I know there's like a difference between the Chinese and English. But I don't think it's that huge of a difference.
No, for
Like-
me, I've had a few different versions of them, but the Chinese versus the English ones, I think the biggest difference in production is the frame. A stamped frame versus a cast frame, basically. I think the magnets are still coming from England. Could be wrong about that. The English versus the Chinese, they do sound the same to me, but I do prefer the Mesa version, which I have in my Jet City 412, which I wish I hauled in here. But yeah, those speakers, they're a lot warmer, so they don't.
Yeah, they are.
They're a little bit, I guess, softer in the mids. It's just a little bit. I don't have the mid spike. But the Mesa Vintage 30s are my favorite of that series.
Really?
By far. Yeah.
Do they have that spike?
No, they really don't.
That infinite spike everybody talks about.
You know.
They talk about it because it's a thing, dude.
Well, hang on. I have a Mesa, like traditional 4x12 is like my gold standard for a cab. So I'll switch. I've got like a hang on one second. I think I've got hang on. I've got an IR of the Mesa 412 actually, and then mine. And I think
Holy shit, hang on.
what?
Ralph Naderchop, are you telling me that you have 2 X100 heads?
Like the early Steve Vai stuff?
Yeah.
Wow.
Those are cool fucking heads.
With the like a Mesa Mark series sort of EQ thing on them? Is that what they had? Yes.
Those were awesome.
Yeah.
They're loud and
They've got carpet Tolex on them too.
that's cool.
The early ones do.
Okay, what
They
was
just
up with
released those, re-released them, I guess, before they went out, but a couple years ago they reissued it.
Yeah.
What is up with the whole carpet covering thing? I don't understand that because they just get so dirty and nasty looking.
It was cheap. That's probably the motivator right back then. It was cheap.
Like I've never seen them look. I've never seen a carpet covered amp look good.
A stained cabinet. Like there's some guys that build some like exotic wood, like Bubinga wood for like their Mesa Mark 5s or whatever. I'd much rather see stained wood over carpet. And stained wood is a hell of a lot cheaper. Even if it's plywood, I don't care. But carpet is just never
There's I hate to bring up Diamond again, but did you guys see their first year edition amps that they brought to their first year at NAMM?
No, what year was that?
2008, I believe. Hang on, let me pull them up. They are gorgeous amps.
That was their first year, 08?
Yeah.
I thought they were around a little bit sooner than that.
No, they are they're like all natural stained woods and they're gorgeous. Actually, yeah, hang on. I actually have a picture that Lynn sent me. If I can find it. Yeah, it's a Spitfire in like quadruple A flame maple. And it's just nuts.
Lynn Burke?
Yeah, Lynn Burke.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's got one of them. And I'm going to search for it. You guys got to see these things because they are gorgeous looking. Like I don't particularly like stained amps, but I do really, really like the way that these look.
You're getting a little history lesson in the chat there.
What's up?
You're getting a little history lesson in the chat.
Oh, I am. They didn't know better to care about aesthetics.
It was the grunge of amps.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
It was a revolt against
Actually, I'm surprised they didn't just put fucking flannel shirts on the amps back then.
They should have. I bet you know who would have had one? Blue Saraceno.
Oh my God, yes. His amp with that built-in Variac.
Yeah. Oh, the Dirty Boy?
Yeah, the Dirty Boy. That's right.
I have a friend that owns one of those.
His
I
dad
should
built
get that one guy. The
Didn't his
prog
dad
rock
build that
dude.
for him? Yeah.
Huh?
I think didn't his dad build it for him?
Yeah.
Bruce?
Yeah, I guess it's really weird. Apparently the deal with that, he tried to he tried to socialize around and
Just
get
putting one of these right in the center of your amp.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Here's
No,
that
that's
amp
cool.
I was talking about, guys.
Oh
Isn't
shit!
that gorgeous?
Wow, I like
Yeah. Isn't it like, I feel like that's like a really classy way to do it. Like I normally don't like stained wood on amps.
that.
I could get in trouble looking. The Diamond Girls are infamous.
I would just
Yeah,
be
I'm not gonna
Googling
find it.
Diamond Girls.
That's right.
I mean, they're there. That's what you
No,
see at
what
NAMM.
you need to be Googling is shit. Soundgarden needs to back me up on this. Who's that guy? Isn't it? I don't want to say his name. God damn it! He had like these one word phrases posted all over his amp booth at NAMM year after year after year, like innovative and oh shit, Joey Dahlia, is that his name? Klops drums. I think that's it. That, yeah, you guys need to look that stuff up and to see that the weird. Basically, just take like a huge ass a floor tom and put a 12-inch driver in it and turn that into an amp.
What?
Yeah.
Dude, that actually sounds pretty cool.
Dude, I bet it gents your balls off.
I bet it does. I
Oh
also
my
found my man cave in
Wow.
next. Oh wow, that's a really tiny image.
A lot of diamond.
No, hang on. Let me see if I can make it bigger.
In there in a Soldano. That's
Hang
got to
on.
be a Lynn Burke's shop.
Here. See, I see.
That's Blue City Music, isn't it?
No, I see a Friedman Butterslacks, Diamond Spitfire, Laboga, Mr. Hector, PVJSX, KSR. I'm guessing it's too small to be a Colossus. I'm guessing Gemini. Spawn Nitro, Framus Cobra, 3 5150s.
Because why not? I mean,
Yeah.
really.
Well, because if one goes down, you just go to the next man up.
You use the 5150 so often. Tube Meister 18, Archon, looks like a Hot Rod 50. That looks like a Diamond Phantom. Might be a Quick Rod there. Spawn 5153 and God, there's so many knobs. A Mesa. It's got to be like a Road King or something.
Oh, Road King. That's a Road King.
Yeah, it's too many knobs to be a recto.
No, the Mesa Road King is like an analog Axe Effects. Seriously, they do sound pretty good.
Do they sound like a regular recto?
No, and that's the best thing about it. Seriously, a buddy of mine, Pickle. He Soundgarden knows him. He had a Road King 212, and man, that thing nailed a lot of talent. I mean, it could run the whole gamut.
That sounds like my kind of Mesa. If I was to own a Mesa, it'd probably be a Road King or those triple crowns are really cool. But
I think
feel
I
like
would probably get the JP Sig.
I've heard those are really good too. I haven't gotten a chance to try one. That's like the only Mesa I haven't been able to try.
Actually, there's a couple that I kind of lost after. That one, the Stiletto, even though I played for one, was kind of
I thought you really loved that thing.
Yeah.
You talked about it for like 2 days after. What are you talking about?
Well, you know, I turned it up loud.
Everything sounds better when it's loud.
Yeah.
I'll try back in a minute, guys.
And the Lone Star is killer. I actually made this little guy back here started out. It's been through a few different reincarnations. At one point, I built a little Lone Star clone.
Mm-hmm.
It sounded killer. That's really just a fancy way of saying Mesa ripped off a Fender Champ and made it 60 watts. And so I stole it back and I made it 18 watts or something.
So
And then
you basically remade a Fender Champ.
yeah, pretty much. And then that was killer. But then I made this one, which I like. I was thinking about making like a really small lunchbox head version of it. Try to sell it for like $300-400, and it would have built-in IR out.
All of those lunchbox things.
Yeah,
So
I feel like
I am not a fan of the
unfashionably late to the party.
huh?
I said I'd be unfashionably late to the party if I
Oh.
did that now.
Well, it seems like the whole lunchbox thing isn't going to stop anytime soon. I'm personally not a fan of the whole lunchbox thing where you can see I have 300-watt heads behind
Yeah,
me.
but you're totally overkilling it. It's funny, like you've got these mega amps and then you're putting them into a fucking attenuator and listening through headphones. Like that might as well be a Wagner Atma, you know? 7 watts of pain.
Yeah.
No, it's actually funny you say that. But I don't actually play through my cab very often, if
That's
ever.
my point, dude. You don't need 100 watts.
But it's the sound of like the big transformers and stuff. And plus you can't
Luke, check this out. 50, 50, 50, 50.
not
I
enough
don't have a
headroom.
single, and my 2204, 50
Those
watts.
Those don't gent.
Well, just put a tube screamer in front, anything can jet.
Okay. All right. Do I need to explain my hatred for tube screamers on here?
Yeah, you're kind of an anomaly, dude.
I know, right?
Like you love to gent, but most of those guys, like even Misha has his own fucking tube screamer clone.
Yeah. And he's got his own signature tube screamer, and then his signature amp has a tube screamer built into it. So he runs a tube screamer into a tube screamer into an amp that'll gent your balls off.
Yeah, so
Right,
it's so funny
hilarious.
because here's the thing about you. I just realized everything that you love, you
Mhm.
hate.
I know.
So like Mesa, you're like dual rectifier. I fucking hate him, but like every band I grew up listening to has him, and like
That
Hey,
was
Luke,
the point
I
of the
like humbuckers.
conversation.
Oh, fuck humbuckers.
Look,
lipsticks all the way, bitch.
split coil. There you go. Perfect solution. No, I don't. That was my whole like point of my Mesa.
That's what I like about you, Luke, is that you're not taking the traditional approach. I mean, you've got literally your own style. I mean, if you look at just like the basic fact coming down to how you bias your amps,
Mhm.
you set them cold as fuck, and that's what you like because that's what works for you. But nobody else does that.
Mhm.
I mean, you're not just a sheep.
Yeah.
You're doing your thing. You're experimenting, and you like to experiment. That's what's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
I need.
you and
Speaking
I-
of,
Well, like Bryce and I kind of have similar styles,
Mhm.
and you kind of are a little bit different from that because you're more of the modern gent sort of stuff, and
Mhm.
Bryce and I are more old school Van Halen hard rock sort of thing. So we like the sponginess and hot power tubes and all that, which is very different from what you like. Polar opposites. It really is. But
yeah,
but you're trying to find the best combination of what works for the style that you want to play instead of settling for what everybody else does.
Can I add something to that?
go for it.
I love high gain amps, but it's hilarious because I'll sit there and I'll mod some guy's amp, and it'll be like this last VH4 channel that I made, and I'm sitting there like I've got it like the gain just cranked, and I'm like playing blues licks. the hell's going on here? Like, just playing blues licks to like this high gain amp. It's hilarious. So I like that stuff. I like high gain amp tone. I like all that sort of chunky stuff, but I don't really play that way anymore.
Yeah, I like the high gain stuff. So actually, Kayla, you reminded me I need to rebias the Phantom because it's still running at like the normal area. I think it's like
your room temperature is elevated because of the bias of your amp.
no, I need. Yeah, I'm really susceptible to it. I need to. It's running a little too hot. I need to cool it down a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a good question for you, Luke. Knowing that you kind of like the colder the bias, do you find that you have like a set number for each of your amps, or are they all kind of different based on how they sound to you, where you set your bias?
It's kind of like a range. It's usually around like I don't just like blindly set it to as cold as possible because it depends on what set of tubes are in it.
Wait a minute. You once told me you just turn it as low as you can turn it.
I did.
Isn't that blindly just making it as low as it can go?
I think I might have been joking. No, I always listen to it.
I think you're gradually maturing.
No, I don't do that. I'm still 12.
He bumps it up a milliamp a year.
What?
He bumps it up 1 milliamp a year.
When I'm 50, it'll finally be like where it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
No, I kind of set it to where I think it sounds best. And it's weird how I do it because you have to change the volume when you do it because otherwise you're going to think that the hotter sounds better. But since I do recording and stuff, it doesn't matter how loud the amp is because like I'm just going to get it to the volume I need it at. And like I'm going to mess with the volume in post. I don't need like a raging loud amp. So like whenever the volume levels are matched, the cold bias just sounds usually tighter. Not necessarily harsh, but like there's just like a more like aggressive nature to the top end. Whereas
so you're saying that it kind of caters more to the lower volume playing that you typically record at?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, because you're not recording your amps balls out, right?
No, I mean I've got the master volumes on usually around like 2 to 3 or so, like just enough to get the cab working a little bit.
Okay.
But I'm not. I mean, again, and cranking it is going to defeat the purpose of what I'm trying to do, because like as soon as you start, you get past that mark, they just flub out.
Yep.
Like all of them. And so the cold bias I find kind of helps with that. The diamond doesn't really, it's not affected by it as much. Like I feel like I can still kind of tell that this is biased too warm for my liking. But like that amp in particular, I've messed with it and like it's not a huge difference between them.
Okay.
But
so like,
yeah,
what's your range on those amps?
It's usually between like 11 to 14 or so.
God, that's
I know.
So
it sounds so stupid, but it like to me it sounds so good.
Aside from crossover distortion, which a little bit mix is not necessarily a bad thing, but you're essentially extending tube life by doing it that cold. You can.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I'm not doing it for tube life. Like I know like the effects of it and stuff, and like I don't have to buy tubes as often. But like, just it sounds good. It sounds more like a hi-fi, like aggressive, in your face kind of sound.
Yeah.
Hey guys, can I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, go for it.
I just want to give you a little interlude of some guitar porn. Look at this this thing. Okay, so this guitar, this is my number
Yes.
one
Finally get to see it.
Tokai Love Rock hair tie on this.
There you go.
There you go. String dampener.
Yep. Got the hole where the pick guard used to be.
Yeah, I was just
pick
going to point that out.
Oh, I like the pick guards.
Dude, it's like wearing a bow tie. And then
But
this
for
is the best part. Ready?
A gold top needs a pick guard. Just my
Yeah.
opinion.
I think all Les Pauls need a pick guard.
No.
So-
No.
Okay,
Not all of them. Some of them.
this guitar is like
It's a
30
one
years
piece.
old.
That's a one-piece body.
And this guitar is from 1982. No headstock break.
Yeah.
Love this thing.
That is gorgeous.
I
man.
paid $850 from Japan for it. It showed up in this weird form-fitted gig bag that was like looked like pleather, brown pleather, and was exactly the same size and shape as the guitar. Like it was like wearing pleather pants on the guitar, like this form-fitted gig bag,
Yeah.
and it smelled like fucking 10,000 cigarettes. So I pulled it out of the box and I was like, whoa, okay. And it has this like super thick 50s neck on it. Like this is the story with these guitars is that just like 2 years before this, they had these Japanese luthiers had reverse engineered a 59 Les Paul with like precision. And if you think about Japanese carpentry, the Japanese have been doing extremely detailed woodworking at the highest level for like thousands of years, right?
Mhm.
So they have like woodworking down and all that. So this is like a custom shop Les Paul that's as close to a burst as you can get. And now it's vintage. It's like from 1982. Most of the dings on it are ones that I put there like this. There's like a thing.
Yeah, it's that
I
one.
can kind of see it.
Yeah, I put some super glue on it. Yeah.
Oh, Bondo.
Yeah, dude, that is a really sick guitar. Did you guys see that Les Paul I sent you a picture of earlier? That blue one?
No.
You did? I sent it in the chat. So it was a Studio Pro. It had like the sickest.
Oh,
It
the
was
black.
like a. No, that was a Tremonti. That was a PRS Tremonti. There was
I thought
a.
the first one that you sent was a Les Paul. The very first one.
I forget the order, but the Les Paul was like a dark blue, and it had like a hybrid quilt flame top. It was gorgeous in real life. So,
Nice.
yeah. If we're,
Well, since we're talking about guitars here, Luke, what are you playing?
you guys know what I'm playing.
Oh,
So I'm gonna take my strap off. I don't know if you guys can see. Hang on, let me put it on my
You don't like
screen
the
so I can
strap on?
actually see. Huh?
You don't like the strap on?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys can see like
Hey man, I'll try anything
Gorgeous.
twice.
that quilt top is amazing.
It is. That's way over
That's-
the top, dude.
I love it. Like it's got a little too much light on it, but that might be better. Yeah, dude, this guitar, I love this guitar. And actually, since I played a PRS earlier today, I played that Tremonti. I still think I made the right decision.
That's all that matters, man.
Yeah, like yeah, I don't know what it is about this thing. Like, I know I'm like such a fanboy, but this guitar is what made me a fanboy of the brand. Oh, I should probably say what it is because the chat probably doesn't know. It's a Diamond Monarch EX, and I was looking at like the PRS SE Custom 24s and then like the S2 USA Custom 24s. And I played them and like they were good. And I really wanted that body style, but I didn't like fall in love with them. And I decided to take a chance on this thing. And it just, something about it's just like better than a PRS in every way that I can think of. Like it's got like more attitude to it.
Sure.
I usually call them a POS.
Well,
I used to have one, and I was teaching at the time, and I would just grab a guitar off the wall in the shop, and I was playing these like $100 knockoff Squire Strats by some weird WD brand, WD Music or something like. But they were amazing. You could grab it. It would be instantly in tune. You could grab it and just go, and it would be like in tune. All of the chords would intonate properly. And my POS, I would sit there and I would just forever be tuning it. And I would intonate. I would check the intonation on a strobe tuner. The intonation would be dead nuts on, but it would be like, not like I play like a D chord and a G chord and there's like a difference, but more like I could never just get the fucking thing in tune. And I'm like, okay, this is like a $2,500 guitar, and any day of the week I can grab some shitty $99 Strat and it does everything right. Like, why do I have this thing? You know?
Yeah, I still want to play a custom 24. I didn't tell you guys about my horrible experience at a Guitar Center today, but they were not very helpful, which is why I was there for so long today.
And that's why they're going out of business.
Yeah, no, so just quick story. The Nitrox had blown a fuse and they didn't know about it, of course, because they don't check for that stuff. And so they left me in that room for like a good half hour to 45 minutes. Like it was a long time where I was just like left there. And I was like, okay, maybe they're looking for a fuse. No, the guy had been like just going off doing other things, like on his break, helping out other customers and stuff, which I get it. Like, okay, go help out the other customers, but like at least tell somebody I'm in there waiting, like just trying to check out this amp. Like, yeah. And they eventually got like another dude, but yeah,
these stores are weird, man. Like I remember I walked into a shop here in Seattle one time, and I literally had $5,000 in my pocket. Like it looked like a wallet, but it was a folded over wad of cash. And this is like 1993 money, you know? So it was a whole different amount compared to today when I say $5,000. And I walked around, I couldn't get a sneeze for like an hour. And all I wanted to do was spend this money, you know, and I knew exactly what I wanted. And so finally I went up to the manager and I was like, "Are you the manager?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I go, "I have a lot of money to spend, and I've been completely ignored since I walked in, and I'm about to walk out the door unless somebody gives me some fucking attention." And so he's like, "Let me personally help you with that." And he like walked me around the shop for like an hour. I plugged and I milked it. I played through like every amp. But I spent all my money. I wound up buying an ADAT and a Mackie mixer and some other stuff.
I thought you were going to say that you walked out with like a fucking line 6 or something.
Yeah, Bryce would do that. But going back to those PRSs, so I was in like the platinum room, whatever. Like it was like the used room, but also like the platinum room, which is hilarious because like they were like, what?
Here's an Epiphone.
Yeah, they were like custom 24s right next to like Epiphones and Squires and like Gibbs. Yeah. It was hilarious. But yeah, so I asked for a guitar and I asked if I could like check out the guitars, and like obviously I wanted to play the nice guitars through the nice amps, but I guess Guitar Center is locking their nice guitars now. And so I asked the guy, I was like, "Hey, can I try that PRS?" And he looks at me and he's like, "No, I have to go get somebody to unlock that." He has a key ring full of keys right off his belt. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" And so I got the Tremonti because that was the only one that just happened to be unlocked. But had it not been unlocked, I would have had to like use like a $400 Epiphone.
Right.
But I was like, why can't you just unlock the guitar?
I'll tell you why.
Because
If you had no fucking intention of buying that,
Well, but I wasn't there to
that guy
check
made the
out.
right call.
What's that?
I said that dude made the right call. Like you were just in there checking out gear. You weren't gonna buy anything.
Oh, they didn't know I wasn't going to buy the amp.
No, but he could smell it.
No, you can't. I wasn't there to check out a guitar. But like, and then the other dude that like eventually helped me that I talked to on the phone, he was super nice and like actually helped out and like was not the normal Guitar Center employee.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool.
Right here, the one that I go to in Kansas City, there's one guy in particular that I like to chat with because he's, you know, really, really knowledgeable about everything, and he'll work with you and all that, and understands that, you know, when some people come in, they just want to check out the gear. They're not necessarily going to buy anything, so he caters to that. But if you're also serious about buying, you know, he'll work with you on that.
Yeah.
There's another dude that's kind of like that, but most everybody else, they work there just because it's a job, and it kind of sucks, you know.
Yep. Yeah, like it was either that or like a yogurt shop or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's why I like the local stores. Like Mojo's Music here in Edwardsville. That's where I got my Taylor from. That's where I bought my 6505 combo. It's where I bought my red Ibanez, my bass. I mean the drum set. Like literally most of my stuff in my room is from that store because they're so nice and so helpful.
I want to point out in the chat that Tom said that ever since they added the lesson departments, the layout of the stores is so stupid. Yeah, our Guitar Center here in Kansas City, well, Overland Park, literally cut in half because they added those stupid ass lesson rooms. So their inventory chopped down because they don't have the square footage for everything. So all the good stuff that they did have out the window.
I didn't even know they were doing lessons.
I didn't know that until just a few months ago when I happened to pop in there because I wanted to buy some string or whatever the hell I was looking at. But yeah, they're like cut in half now. One half is like lesson booths, and then the other half is just the retail side.
And somebody was saying they have no amps at Guitar Center. I don't know if that's just like your area, because the three around my area, just in the store I went to today, I went to go check out a Diamond Nitrox, which, I mean, yeah, that's a used amp, but they had a 5153 EL34. They had a Friedman Runt 20. They had an orange. I can never tell the models that they have. Like I can't tell between the models, but like they had like a decent selection of like things besides Line 6 combos. Another store has a Diesel Herbert in stock right now.
Wow.
Yeah, like, and that's pretty cool. I want to go check that thing out.
Yeah.
But yeah, at least the stores around here, they actually do a good job of keeping some cool amps in stock.
There's a Guitar Center downtown that's right across from Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe this is why they have a wicked selection of guitars and amps. It's kind of like a Guitar Center superstore.
Dude,
but I went in there
awesome.
one time and they had all this really killer used gear. They had like a JSX 120. They had a couple of used Soldanos. They had a Cobra. And I remember it was kind of funny. I plugged into the Cobra and I really just wanted to check it out, right? So I plug in, I got like some Music Man or something, plug in, and like every jack and pot was like wobbly and loose. And the Tolex, it looked like it fell out of the back of somebody's truck. And they're like, fuck it, I'll just trade it in. You know, so then it went right to the floor. And I was trying to get it to work. And the guy goes, look, man, here's what you do. You just get the pro coverage, and then if it breaks, we'll pay for it to get replaced. Like that was his trying to sell it to me. Like, so I got to buy this thing and I get the pro coverage, and then you'll send it to a shop and get it to
Did you
You know,
say
or
that's a? Did you say it's a Soldano?
No, it was a
Framus Cobra.
Oh, the
Yeah,
frame.
Framus
I thought he said it was a Soldano. I was gonna say those have a lifetime warranty.
Yeah.
Like, just send it back to Mike for free.
I don't know that it covers falling out of the back of a moving truck though.
Well, if it was a 5150, it would have been just fine. Those things don't die. I've got Facebook pulled up right next to me. Remember the guy I told you about that was complaining about the fuse holders and the handle?
Yeah.
He just posted again where he fixed his amp with like the Marshall style fuse holders. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like, I don't understand how somebody breaks those.
The fuse holders.
Yeah.
You just haphazardly shove your shit into a van.
Or during shipping, they break pretty frequently on the shipping, as Bryce probably found out on his JC45.
Dude, that was one of the most meticulously packed amps. I got this one amp from a guy, and it was the worst. Everything about this is the worst possible. Like, this amp is cursed. And the guy, he's a really nice guy. So in case you're watching, it's, you know, love you, man. He's in a situation where he doesn't have any money because he has a specialized career, but it's sort of a blue collar town or something, and so he can't get any job. But he wants to get some mods, and so I wound up working out a deal with him. So he goes to send me this amp, and like in the meantime, we're exchanging emails nonstop. Like, he's asking me all these questions. And I try to respond to everything, right? But there comes a point where if you add it all up, you're now losing money. Right? And I try not to worry about that. But like, if I can look back and it's like 400 emails, and at that point I'm just like, okay, you know. And so the amp comes, and he goes, yeah, the box is in bad shape. Hopefully you have a box laying around. I'm like, I don't have a C22 box laying around. So I get this thing, and it looks like he cut off the box from his original amp, and then when he shipped it to me, he tried to tape it back together.
Oh no!
It was more roundy than square shape. It was packed full of like peanuts. So when I opened it, the peanuts exploded everywhere.
Oh no!
And then, so finally, I go to mod it, and somehow the little retainer clips that you screw the bolt into to hold the chassis to the cabinet, one of it broke. So the nut was just spinning free on the bolt. I couldn't get the shell out. So I had to hacksaw the fucking bolt off. Took like half an hour because I was trying not to like mar his cabinet. And I'm like, I don't even have it open yet, and I'm losing money on this thing. Like, I got like 6 hours into this amp.
Jesus.
Have you guys seen my cab unboxing video? Bryce, you reminded me of this because of the packing peanuts. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Did you see the mess afterwards? Did I send you a picture of that? Dude, I mean, you saw how big the box was. It was not a small box, and there was probably a good 2 inches of packing peanuts on every side of the cab. So that's a lot of packing peanuts, and there was no way of getting that thing out without just dumping it all. And oh my God, my room was a disaster after all those. I found packing peanuts inside the cab. Like, because you guys know how I took it all apart to do the lights. I found them in the cab. I was like, how did these get in here?
Yeah, packing peanuts are kind of a no-no when you're shipping amps and heavy stuff like that.
It was horrible.
There's a couple guys that I follow on Instagram that are amp techs, and they will basically ship shame people that that ship their shit in like the worst way possible, or UPS jacks it up and just decides that packing peanuts are a good thing, you know, but it's just. And then they'll also document, like, here's the proper way to ship, you know, a 45 pound amplifier with proper foam and support and all that sort of stuff.
What amps are that light?
Well, just like some smaller ones, you know, but
Oh, okay, not 100-watt amps like mine.
it could be, yeah. But
Let me tell you, this is how you ship an amp that doesn't have the original box. That's a seriously pristine box, and they clearly took the head out of the head shell. This is like the lightest thing ever. And what's funny is this particular one, I've done a few of these, but this one is another return to from the dark side to the light.
Oh.
So it's unmodding somebody.
Yes.
Oh, do I know whose amp this is?
Double D.
Yeah.
Do I know whose amp this is? Do I know the owner? Didn't he just post in the Facebook group?
Jeff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's his amp.
Okay. I didn't want to call anybody out.
What? There's a million Jeffs, so you could just say the first name.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, Jeff,
I know it's Jeff.
love you so much, man. I want to high five you right now because this is like the way you should send an amp.
Yeah, the way it was put to me was pack your amplifier so you could take it and raise it up to your mouth, drop it on the floor, and not worry about it breaking. So, that's a little extreme for me. But I mean, think about the people that work at UPS, FedEx, whatever. They're literally tossing your shit around, so it's got to survive a fall.
This might be a no-no, but anytime I ship an amp, which I've shipped quite a few amps now, I think, between selling them and then sending them back to the manufacturer for tube defects that take out your amp. But I've always just taken them to UPS and just put them on the scale and say here. And like they do a good enough job because nothing's ever gone wrong with any of the amps.
Well, and a lot of times with UPS, like a certain dollar amount with their claims, they have to say, well, we have to pack it and we have to inspect it. So if you just plop it on their scale and let them do it, they're liable for any damage.
Oh yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. And I always get the like the coverage and stuff. And like whenever I shipped that thing out, like I told them the price and they were like, whoa.
Yeah, like I hate shipping amps out to New York because it cost me like almost $180 to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I box it up myself, and it's just not doing that.
You want to know what sucks? That same
from you, Bryce, would be a bitch going all the way across the country.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That same POS that I had when I finally sold it. No, actually, I think it was when I bought it. I bought it. Let me get my facts straight. Either when I bought it or when I sold it. I think it was when I bought it because, anyway, so I had this thing coming to me in the mail and UPS went on strike.
Oh no.
And so there's my guitar sitting in a UPS truck in the middle of summer, just parked in a lot for like 2 weeks.
Oh.
It was so pissed. I was so pissed.
Maybe that's why your guitar never worked
It
properly.
might have been. Yeah. Because especially like it wasn't broken.
Yeah.
So I couldn't get them. I was like, seriously, like this thing sat in a parking lot for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You guys need to give me some cash for this thing, you know? And they were like, it's not broken.
Did you buy that from PRS directly? Like, did you buy that new?
I did buy it new.
I mean, I wonder if that's like something because I don't know how much they'd be willing to do, but like I feel like PRS of all companies, they would understand how horrible that is for a guitar.
Right.
Like, I don't know what could be done in that situation, like reset up or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is there was a lot that I liked about it. It stayed in tune really well. That as far as like the tremolo, and I really liked the pickups in it. There was it had this It was the Dragon bass pickup, I think.
Okay.
And it was great. I really, it had a unique tone to it. But, you know, I'm kind of anal. Like, I give less shits about it now. But back then, I could hear if it was just like the tiniest little bit out. I used to have perfect pitch. And I remember there was like a point in which I was moving or something and I detuned my guitars because I thought you were supposed to do that. And I stored them. I stored them in a closet for like 2 months or something while I was moving into the new place and all that. And a buddy came over and I was showing him my gear and I was like, check this out. And I just tuned it up by ear. And then I grabbed, and I go, wait. And I checked it again and I tweaked it. And he goes, what, it wasn't good enough? And I was like, it wasn't in tune. It wasn't to pitch. And he's like, how can you tell? I'm like, I can just tell. And he's like, you're bullshitting me. And I'm like, no, I can just tell. And he's like, well, here, tune it with the tuner. And so my tuner was right there and he handed it to me. And so I checked it and it was like dead nuts on, like as perfect as you could get. So he goes, okay. He grabs my other one out of the closet and he jacked up the tuning and he's like, tune that. And so I'm like, pressure's on. So I tune it. I'm like, wait. And I handed it to him. I was like, wait. Pulled it back and I checked it again. I gave it to him and he checked it on the tuner and it was like, bam, straight up. So I could hear, even if it was mostly in tune, there was just something about it that would just drive me nuts and I couldn't hang with it.
You know
I probably could deal with it a little bit more now. I've mellowed a little bit more.
You know what you need, Bryce?
Tell me.
You need a fan fret, true temperament, Evertune guitar. That's what you need. Basically, real life MIDI.
That sounds like a horrible idea. I'd be like, this one is out of tune, but only on the first 2 strings.
So have you? There's a true temperament Evertune guitar out there. I think Mayonnaise makes it. It's nuts.
I love mayonnaise.
Yeah, mayonnaise is great.
Yeah.
Mayonnaise is great on sandwiches, man. I'm telling you.
So I would definitely. There's something about and I guess Chuck has like 6 guitars with Evertune bridges on it.
Yeah, he's got a lot. He's got some good stuff.
I got a feeling that dude's sitting on a dragon's keep full of gear. But I think I'm really curious about those Evertune bridges, but I feel like I would play it and it would feel weird to me.
I think it might be because of how it's like a dynamic string tension sort of thing, you know?
Right.
Like if you pluck too hard, you feel it kind of give a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it might be kind of like the difference between like a Shaler Floyd Rose versus like the Ibanez with the ball bearing pivot sort of thing.
That's what I got.
You love it. Yeah, exactly. That's why I knew that you would chime in on that. But it could be like the subtle difference between that. I don't know.
Have you seen those things? Like you can tune them way the fuck down and they just hold their pitch somehow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know how they work because I looked into them really heavily because my blue Ibanez, I considered putting one on there. It's a really simple concept. Like once you understand how it works, it's just simple mechanics. Huh?
It's just a counterbalance thing that just keeps it level.
Yeah, it's just each string has an individual spring, and depending on what tension the string is at, like that spring either has more or less tension on it. And at a certain point, there's a stop bar for like bending and stuff, where once you hit that bar, then the string can raise in pitch, so you can bend and stuff.
Right.
So the way you set it up is like you tune it to where it's right before that bar hits, and then whenever you bend, you can pull the strings.
Yeah. All right, I kind of want to shift gears a little bit. I want to go back to from the Facebook page a couple days ago.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
And answer some of the questions we got there. The one of them that really kind of stood out to me was if you could lay out a basic setup kit for doing mods, and I guess kind of cover some tools that you would need. I don't really want to go into the knowledge about that because that's a whole separate topic and the electrical safety and all that. But
Yeah, I can cover that part really quickly. Be safe. Don't be an idiot. I've been shocked by an amp. I would not recommend it.
Well, I've been lucky so far, and as much as I've been doing, I've not been shocked once. So
that 6505 combo, it tried to kill me.
Yeah, and they will try and kill you. That's the thing. But
oh yeah, it hurt. It hurt.
So aside from going into that, the thing I'm going to just start off with: make sure you understand how to drain the energy from the amps before you even think about starting to work on them. You got to be safe. Once you know how to do that, then we can start talking about what kind of tools you can start using. So I don't know if you've got some recommendations. I know, Bryce, that you linked me on a nice soldering kit that was just dirt cheap, and it's kicking ass. So if you want to go for some like really cheap stuff for people that are starting out, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So the first thing that I would tag on to your comment about being safe. Also, unplug your amp from the wall, because even though it sounds stupid, but even though it's not plugged in, it still has live contacts at the AC point in the amp. So it maybe won't kill you, but it'll shock the shit out of you at 120.
You know, 600 volts potentially, even after a few days of it being unplugged, that it's still storing that potential energy, and it's enough to fuck you up.
Bryce, the time I got shocked, I was messing around with the amp. This was before I knew anything about tube amp safety, and it was plugged in and on and running. And I decided, I'm just gonna like mess around with this stuff and
put 2 fingers in there and just let it run through your arm.
I touched the wrong thing, and it felt like the biggest, hardest bear hug from like behind. It was just like squeezing my chest.
Well, here's the funny part. Here's the thing. In America, we're running 120 volt outlets, right? And so over in like Europe, they're running basically kind of double that. Like, aren't they running 220, something like that?
240, I think.
240, 220, 240. It's actually safer out there. You want to know why?
The plug.
Well, not necessarily, but if you get shocked by 110, 120 here, it's contracting all your muscles and you're sticking with it. But when you're over in Europe and it's 240, something like that, it's enough to actually just blow you off of it. So it's just like shock, and then you're off.
That's funny, man.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got shocked. It was the stupidest thing. Actually, it was this little fucker back here. When I first built it, this was like 1991 or 2001 or something, and it was the first time that I had actually built an amp from scratch. And I was sitting there, I was tuning it or something, tweaking it, and I had it sitting out of the chassis on top of that little cabinet, which, by the way, I made from scratch by hand.
Oh, it looks like it.
Probably couldn't tell, wood from Home Depot. I may have even covered it with something clear that looked like lacquer. Anyway, so I had it on, and I was living with like 4 other roommates, and they were all out watching TV, and I was in my room, which was just outside the living room. And so I leaned over, and I was going to try to, it sounds killer. I'm going to just put it back in the chassis while it's still on.
That was live.
My thumb reached over and touched the switch with the 2 contacts.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it hurt so bad. And I was just like, oh, fuck. And I'm like, okay, my heart's still beating. I'm just going to not say anything and pretend that didn't happen. Like, nobody said anything. My door was open. Like, because I knew if those guys heard, they would I would get endless amount of shit over it. So I'm just like, okay, I'm just gonna not say anything.
Oh my god.
But yeah, you don't need much. Like when I first started, I just really had a soldering iron and like a shitty Radio Shack soldering iron, like a 35 watt or something, just a pencil type. Don't get the gun, like the 100-watt gun.
That's what I started with too. Can't tell you how much shit I burned up with that.
It's fun.
Well, yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Like 18 years ago.
Yeah. But I always if I had like a bug out bag full of electronic stuff, it would be a soldering iron. Now, granted, you can get a basic pencil for like $20, or you can get the soldering station that I showed you for $20.
Yeah, and it's phenomenal. It really is.
Yeah.
You can adjust the temperatures on it, and it's great. It holds up.
Yeah, it holds the temp too, so it'll heat up quick and hold it there. It's great. And then I have a couple odds and ends. Just a pair of needle nose pliers and fine nippers. I should show you what I use really quick.
And I'll also say that wet toothpicks will come in handy a lot, especially when you're working on PC boards and you're trying to remove components and you want to create that hole in there. Bryce will kind of expand on that a little bit, but instead of just completely desoldering that joint, you can just basically puncture it with a wet toothpick, create a new hole, good to go.
Oh, seriously?
Yep.
Oh, I wish I would have known that trick. That would have saved me.
There's some PC boards that, I mean, the traces are real thin, so when you put a desoldering pump on there, it'll just basically lift the trace and kind of fuck it up. But yeah,
dude, the PV is horrible. I still stand by as it's like the worst amp ever to service.
Yeah,
because
Bryce can expand on the toothpick method, and yeah, it's really, really helpful.
Yeah, it's I brought one. That's an essential part. So what I have are needle nose pliers, aside from my soldering iron, and good lighting.
I'll grab a couple things here.
Good lighting is a pretty essential part. So needle nose pliers I use a lot for either just holding something in place if I want to solder it, or using it to bend leads and stuff like that. I have one of those gauges that allows you to put something across it and like nicely bend the leads, but I don't really use it anymore just because I can pretty much just look at it now and bend it to the right size and it'll just drop right in. So it's faster to just bend it with this. Another thing that I highly recommend are these tiny little nippers.
Yeah, you said nippers.
These are what I use.
Yeah. Something with a fine tip. Like those are pretty small and fine. These are Exolites. And they're excellent.
Ones that actually just kind of clip. Those are the really good ones to use.
Yeah.
So Bryce, what you're telling me is your nippers are small?
They are.
Okay.
Nippers,
I wanted to clear that up.
For like bending wire,
cool.
clamping things shut. This
Like a heat sink? Do you use that for like a heat sink?
Sometimes I do. Yeah. But I like it just because of the clamping feature. You just kind of lock it in place.
I have a set of helping hands, and I use that sometimes if I'm wiring up a switch. Like sometimes I'll like to wire up a switch before I stick it in the amp.
Heat sink more than the forceps, though.
Yeah. And actually, here's a pro tip, like a life hack. If you don't have a helping hand, what you can do is put the switch in backwards, right? Mm-hmm. So you stick it through the hole, but you put the paddle thing
in place.
Yeah, so you're just using it. It's all the electrodes are facing out, and it's in place, and you can solder it that way.
Yep.
Anyway, these are great because they're flat on one side, so they're great for clipping excess leads off, and also just general. You can reach into tight spots and clip. When these things die, I'm gonna give them a Viking funeral, and then I'm gonna get on Amazon and order a brand new set. But this one, I don't remember where I heard about it, but it was on a forum, and I was like, Jesus Christ, how do you deal with this fucking lead-free solder? It's brutal. I was like, I spent like 6 hours trying to solder something, it was a pain in the ass. And the guy was like,
solder, you can't just put regular solder over it. You have to completely get rid of it before you can flow leaded solder on top of that joint, because they don't mix. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I can't confirm that from personal experience, but like if you're working with lead-free solder and you have regular leaded solder, you've got to get rid of the lead-free first, completely.
Yeah, I do it all the time.
Well, and like lead-free, I think it has a shelf life. That joint has like an 8-year shelf life before it goes bad. Something like that. I don't know.
Part of that is like what I do is you can't get your joint hot enough. You need you need a really hot iron, and you need to be able to melt it and get in and out quick. But the problem is it cools down so fast that you don't have much time to work with it. So what I always do is I'll heat the joint and I'll hit it with some fresh solder, leaded solder, right? Yep. And then now it's got a higher, a more working time. And so what I do is, I know you can, so Ralph is talking about using a solder sucker or a wick, but oftentimes what I'll do is first I'll just get the joint hot and pull the part out, and then I'll heat the joint up again, and then I'll stick a wetted toothpick, so I'll wet one end in like the sponge for my soldering thing, and I'll stick that in and just kind of rotate it around a little bit until it cools. Yep. and then and then it's basically like,
is that what it's like, Bryce?
Huh?
Is that what it's like besides a toothpick?
Yeah, pretty much. That's what I'm working with. And so that just clears the nice little spot where you can put the new part in. And a lot of times you can get away with doing mods from the top of the amp, but it takes a little bit of practice. You have to be careful. You don't want to heat the joint for too long. But what you do, the reason you don't use a solder sucker is you want that solder that's already on the bottom. You just want to clear away a little bit of spot so you can put the new part in, and now you've got solder down below, and when you heat it, you may add a little bit more, but that's going to sort of cause everything to get wet again and then refuse the joint. And so that's what I do a lot, and oftentimes I'll check the bottom, and I might see one or two that I would look at and go, I think I might just hit that one again from the underside. Yeah. But it's just because maybe it looks weird, but
well, and another thing too is like some PC boards, the traces are so thin that if you're using a solder sucker, you'll just lift an eyelet right off of it and just ruin your trace.
Yeah, and it's weird. Even if it's like on some amps, the Jet City ones are generally pretty good, but for some reason the 20HV in particular, like it doesn't have a solder mask.
The 50 and it has problematic for me too when I was desoldering components on that.
Yeah, and that one, it has these little round, like they're pads, even though the traces are on the bottom of the board. And so they're just little pads, and you put the component through. If you're working at it from, like, you don't even really need the part. It doesn't need to be there. But what it does help do is it helps the solder create a solid connection all the way from the top of the board to the bottom of the board. And if you're missing that part, it's such a pain in the ass. At that point, you have to pull the board.
Yeah. So like as far as like solder, what are you using? I'll show. Since I just grabbed the tube of it. I usually use Kessler 44, the 63, 37, and like a 31 thou diameter. The thinner the stuff is, the easier it is to flow, but you don't want it too thin to where it just basically just burns off. If it's too thick, you're never gonna melt it. But 31 thou diameter is really good for PC work, I feel. And especially with a pencil tip on like a 20, 30 watt iron, it's gonna flow and melt pretty quick. Get you in and out of that joint without burning anything or burning your components, you know?
Yeah, I can't remember. I think it's 60/40. And it's that brand. It's like something Laboratories or something. I can't remember. And it's thin enough to where I can use it on pedals and PCBs. So like when you're working on an amp, there's generally a fair amount of room to work on it, but on a pedal, you know, it can get pretty tight and the components can be pretty small. So I don't want to have to buy separate rolls of solder. So I wind up really like my soldering iron has a pretty fine tip, and I've just gotten used to working with it on the amp. But I can also use it on the pedal, and it's not like this big giant paddle or something.
Yeah, since we're talking about components, Bryce, that reminds me that I need to send you some amp stands or some chassis.
Oh yeah, dude.
Made this out of scrap pallet wood, and
Oh, you don't say.
yeah. I mean, it was free to me.
Did we
Makes a difference.
so we're still on Jim's question right now from the Facebook group, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I would
like
say there's one other thing I would add to that.
multimeter.
Multimeter.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like a fancy one. I have a pretty nice one that, and I didn't even buy it. You know, usually I had like a $10 one that worked just fine, but my wife's dad got me this ridiculous meter.
Like a fluke.
It's a fluke, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's one of those guys like I think he was a former electrician or something. He's like, you need a man's meter, boy.
Yeah, they all say that.
The funny thing is it struggles to read milliamps, and so it's really difficult to bias to precision with that one.
That's because that's what they're used for. Like electricians are not working with milliamps. Ever.
Right. No. So yeah, even just like a $10 one that you can get like for free. Actually, there's one for free that you can get at like a Harbor Freight that will work too.
Yeah. I like shopping at like either sparkfun.com. They're really great. They've got a lot of great tutorials on electronics, electricity, but anything that you want to buy and you're looking on, like, let's just say that you're on a budget and you're really just trying to cut your cost. Just go to Amazon. Anything that we're listing here that you need to buy, look up your tools, look at the ratings that everybody's giving them, and then just go by your cost. And you can get a lot of stuff for not a whole lot of money. Like I think that the last multimeter that I bought was, and it's a pretty decent one, maybe $30, and it's an auto ranging one, so it serves me well. But you know, that's still pretty cheap, and it's pretty accurate too. And like with all the solder and all of the tools that you need, you can buy all that sort of stuff and not pay not even $100 for everything that you would need. Not even close.
Have you ever used Wish?
I don't think so.
Dude, so I saw something about Wish somewhere. It's Chinese, like you're buying it from China, so it's cheap. I bought
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I bought something from there.
What'd you buy?
There's one of those stupid little fidget cube things.
Okay. Yeah, I bought I bought a
You could've
set
gone
of
to Walmart
3
and buy that thing,
Unibits. Huh?
So you couldn't go to fucking Walmart and buy that thing, Luke,
I don't think they were like in. This was before they were out.
before they were popular. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So because I bought them because I can't pay attention in class, so I need something to do.
Totally.
Gotcha. Okay, carry on.
Anyway, so I bought like a set of 3 Unibits, and they were like $4 for the 3 of them, and they're better than the one that I paid $10 for at Harbor Freight, which I've been using for years. I bought some hole saws for metal.
Yeah.
And those were like $4. And they're legit. See, I don't know. I bought it there. Yeah, it's kind of like Alibaba, but it's a little bit more reliable.
That's what I was actually going to reference. Okay.
Yeah. So I actually still have
Did you see his comment in the chat?
Chipsons.
Yeah, Alibaba next to the Chipsons.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, I'm still waiting on something. I bought a new wire stripper from there. It may never show up, but it was $3. So
It's the risk you take.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Another thing that Bryce just touched on, like one of those automatic wire strippers, they are lifesavers.
Yeah.
You can just any gauge wire, it'll just automatically strip it off to where you need it, and they're awesome. I've had mine for at least 3 years and never has failed me. You can do multiple wires at once. Like if you want to strip 3 or 4 wires at once, throw it in there and just strip off however much you need. That's great. There was another thing that I was gonna try and touch on.
Chopstick.
Oh yeah.
Oh, the chopstick.
For your bias. Yeah. For your bias wheel, sure. Let me see. Comments here.
I use a metal rod when I do it.
Metal rod? Sure, why not?
Hold it in your mouth. I always like to sit in the bathtub when I'm biasing a live amp.
Well, if you're going to use a metal rod, you need to actually touch it to your heart.
Right.
Yeah. Just make sure the cab's not in the bathtub with you because you don't want to get the speakers wet.
That's
Be
true.
one with the amp.
Oh man.
A shower with the HDM.
Dude, TMI.
Oh my goodness.
Let's see. Were there more questions from Facebook, or was that it?
I'm kind of going through them right now. Let me look.
We touched on the Transformers already.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try the cat method.
Throw your cat at it.
Yeah.
Eric Sue. I've been hearing that using lower gain preamp tubes without adjusting the circuitry is a bad thing because they draw more current. Is this true? Are they speaking of bad for the tone or bad for the parts?
Yeah, so they do. One of them draws more current, the 12AU7, and it's still generally not a super bad thing for your amp. It just means that now your power transformer doesn't have enough juice to function as designed. And you may actually like the tone, like it might brown out a little bit. But the other thing is like it may also rob your amp of the ability to properly
lose dynamics, basically.
Huh?
I think you lose some dynamics with it. It might feel a little bit stiffer when you start going that route.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say it may not have enough juice for your heaters either. But in any case, like it's not gonna like damage your amp. It just will not work as well. Which obviously isn't ideal. So generally, I think there's a you can use that as long as you're setting the amp up for it, but it's like you have to mod the amp for it if you want to use that tube with ideal circumstances, which really just means like the circuit should be designed for 12AU7. Other tubes, 12AT7s, 5751s, you can plug right in and it's fine. In fact, that's what I would do if I were trying to use those as, you know, a way to clean up my amp, is I would try using either one of those two amps in either the first gain slot, second gain slot, or the phase inverter. But yeah, they're not going to hurt your amp, but there is some truth to that.
I just wanted to add in, I've found when I've done that, at least I've only done it with the 5150. I forgot if I put in, I think it was a 12AT7, but I found the results to be like too dramatic. Like it lowered the gain to where like it wasn't a 5150 anymore.
Yeah.
You want 50.
No, like gain maxed out was like a JCM 800. Like it wasn't. I found the results like, I mean, it did what it said, but it was also like counterintuitive because then the amp, it didn't become usable for me at that point. Or at least not without a tube screamer.
Ralph Nader Chop, I'm going to use my cat next time. Where is that little bastard? On there.
I think we hit, because Tom was in the chat. He was asking about simple tweaks to adjust gain and tone shaping, cathode resistors, and bypass caps. Did we touch on that already earlier?
No, a little bit. We talked a little bit about sort of general just biasing your preamp tubes, but if you want more gain, the best way to do it is either to lower the value of your cathode resistor. You can do it a couple ways. You can lower the value of your cathode resistor. So in a Marshall, if it's 2.7K, you could bring it down to
1.8. I think that's what I did on the Emilio. I think I dropped it down to 1.8.
1.8, yeah, that's the Soldano value. I've gone to like 1.5. It starts to sound weird though. You can go as low as 820. In fact, it's okay to do that if you're also raising the value of the anode resistor. There are some amps that are high gain amps that'll go like 330K anode and 620R for the cathode.
Yeah, it's just two extremes on that tube.
Yeah. So you can either just raise your, like depending on what you have in there. Let's just use a stock Marshall, 100K. You can go upwards, even so much as going like just a little bit. You're not going to change the value much, or change the tonal properties much. But like if you go even to like 120, you'll hear an increase, and it'll be maybe that'll be enough. You can also lower your cathode resistor a little bit. I don't generally try to go extreme in those areas because it can sound weird or change. Like you'll change the feel of the amp more so. Like it'll have more compression or less compression.
Yeah, true. But even if it's like a 2-channel amp and it's a shared gain stage for both channels, that's going to increase your gain on your clean channel too, right?
Yeah. Yep. Some amps, if they're smart, they think like they design their circuit to where they're independent, and either the clean channel bypasses. Yeah. The Amelia is particularly troublesome because it has the clean channel actually shares the first two gain stages, and they're set up really hot. So it's
because it's the first and then fourth that comes back and ties together, right? Isn't that what it is? Preamp tube and then the fourth, half of that fourth.
No, it's the first and second.
Oh, I thought it was the first and fourth for some reason. Okay.
Yeah, so the first two gain stages are shared by both channels, and then you're right. Then it's like it gets one more gain stage. I think you're right. Maybe it's on the fourth tube. It's pretty interesting design. I remember when I first plugged into it, it sounded unholy and amazing, and then I realized that there was something broken with the depth control in a good way. Like when I turned it all the way down, it was just heavy as fuck. Like it had something about it was scooped, but not too scooped, tight. And you could dial it in a little bit. And then if you went a little high, then all of a sudden the knob started working right and it sounded different.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, what's going on down there? Like if I could just tweak it, it would be like the ultimate metal amp. It's pretty cool.
Will that be the Luke edition of the Amelia?
Yeah.
Soon to come out next year.
Install a broken, jacked up. But yeah. The other thing you can do is you can play with the can't think right now. The voltage dividers in between your coupling stages. Just changing the values, like so for example, like a typical Marshall will have 470K and 470K to ground, and that basically creates a 50% reduction. And so you're boosting it up at the preamp tube and then reducing it down into the next stage. And if you change the values of that voltage divider by either changing both values, one up, one down, or changing one up or changing the other one down, you're changing the amount of resistance going through one side of it and then how much you send to ground or don't send to ground.
Right.
And so it's really weird. If you took three values, like 1 meg and 1 meg to ground, you're still dropping it by 50%. If you took that 470 and 470 to ground, you're dropping it by 50%. If you took the standard Jose circuit where they use a 68K and 68K to ground, that circuit is noticeably brighter than the same circuit would be if it had a 1K and a 1K to ground. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's the same.
This is the part that we're talking about. It's going from the second to third gain stage. Is that where it is?
Yeah, like after the signal leads a gain stage and goes through a coupling cap, there's a point in which before it goes to the next stage where you're doing something with it, you're either sending it to a pot for like gain, or you're sculpting the tone. So you might be using peaking resistors to increase certain frequencies. There's a really good write-up on the internet about this stuff, and I think you can go to regiscoin.com, and he's got a thing that like designing tube preamp circuits or something, and it's somebody else's, it's not his work, but it's one of those like ubiquitous internet things that nobody knows where it came from anymore, but it's really good. And it talks about how those interstage coupling stages are kind of like plumbing, and the goal is how much do you resist that water that's going through the pipe, and how much do you send out to the ground?
Yes.
How much do you let go through the next stage? And so if you don't have any of that stuff, it doesn't work. Like you need that, some of it going to ground. It can be a resistance where none of it goes to ground, but it needs to have a connection to ground. But anyway, let's say you have a lot of gain in one stage, and then you resist it with like a 1 meg. You're giving it a lot of resistance, but then if you give it a 1 meg resistor to ground, you're also preventing a lot of that from getting out of the circuit. So in a way, you're saying all of this goes to the next stage. Does that make sense? The way a volume pot works is it bleeds some of it off to ground. So when you have it turned up all the way, you're saying the signal is passing clean through. None of it is bleeding off to ground. But when you have it turned all the way down, you're basically it's a wide open drain all the way to ground.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so it's kind of, you could put a volume pot any place that you have a voltage divider. You could have a volume pot between every stage, which is kind of an interesting thought. I can't believe I haven't tried that yet, but when you start adding in little capacitors, what those do is they're like capacitors. They block DC, which you don't want in your audio path because it sounds really bad.
Right.
And then you can also use them they're sort of like a frequency dependent resistor. So in Hobbit lore, a resistor is like you shall not pass, right? To some degree.
Yeah.
But a capacitor is like you shall not pass mostly. Some of you shall pass. And depending on the value of the resistor, it can be more lows or less lows. So in a Marshall, you get a lot of that classic upper mid-range bite because they're using a 450K and a 450K to ground, and they're putting a 470 picofarad ceramic cap on one of those that doesn't let some of the lows through.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's accentuating the highs because you're bleeding off some of those lows. That's probably way overkill. But like if it was Tom or whoever that was asking wants to do something specific, like if you just want more of a Marshall voice, there's like any number of ways you can revoice your Soldano just with a couple small things to give it more of that Marshall crunch and tighten up the bass.
Even just messing with a slope resistor, just that one part right there is enough to just kind of bump the frequency of where the EQ controls work.
Yeah.
Kind of get into that Marshall range, and it's noticeable, very noticeable.
Yeah. And that's a cool thing. It's fun to be able to go, like sometimes you'll try a mod and you'll be like, yeah, I think I hear something,
Mm-hmm.
And that's a useless mod if you think you hear it. Versus like when you plug it in and you hear a noticeable difference, and then even better if you like it. But like when you hear a difference, then you understand, at least at a rudimentary level, like, oh, I touched my finger on that and it shocked me and it hurt. I don't know why, but I know I don't want to do that again,
Right. And then the inverse of that is like if it's good, then I want to repeat that,
Right. And so what that effect was.
Yep.
There's this thing called scaling where you can take earlier when I mentioned how you can take the same values or different values and keep the same output, but change slightly the frequency balance. You can also maintain a similar balance, because what happens is if you Ralph wants to put us on TV.
Yeah, I just saw that.
No, I think he just wants to lay in bed and like
I think bed might be a possibility here soon. Been going for 4 hours.
yeah.
That's crazy. It's been 4 hours.
I know my
Yeah.
wife's been calling. So you can take, like, if you have that Marshall tone that you love or whatever it is, but I'm using Marshall because it's kind of a ubiquitous thing.
Yes.
It's that 470K or 470K, 470 to ground with a 470p peak or cap over the first 470K.
Yep.
That has a unique sound, but if you start changing that, like I change, if I play with that first value and make it like a 1 meg, what happens is the value of that resistor capacitor network changes. So you're letting in or letting a different frequency pass. So it changes the tone. So I actually went through and calculated. I have an Evernote spreadsheet. I have a calculator that I can use it with, but sometimes I don't want to mess with that. So I have a Evernote spreadsheet, and I can pull it up and look at any values if I want, and see like what I want to scale it to and what the corresponding cap is to maintain the overall balance. So I can use that to increase gain. So let's say if this resistor and this is the one to ground, if these are both 470, that's half of the signal is bleeding out.
Yep.
But if I increase this to like 1 meg, then I've increased my gain. Or if I keep this the same, but I lower this, I've increased the gain. But now I have to change the capacitor that's strapped across it to maintain that same frequency. So I can increase the gain and or change or maintain the frequency based on what cap I use.
Okay.
Super
And that's
nerd.
where you typically see the value of like the 47s or the 0022 or the 068, right?
Yeah.
That spot.
Trying to find, I couldn't pull up my document in time. Yeah, here it is. So for example, here it is. Come on, focus. Yep. Damn it.
Tilt
Nope.
it forward a little bit.
Not quite.
Yeah, hello. Okay. You can kind of see I've got frequency values too. So for example, shit, my phone just the classic Marshall gives you a roll off at 740 hertz. If I want to change that, so I've calculated a whole bunch of values that give you that same roll off. So for example, 100K and a 2200p cap, a 220K and a 1000p cap, a 680K and a 330p cap, and a 1 meg and a 220p cap will all give you roughly that same Marshall 740 response. And if you want to go more of the Soldano,
We're talking off the anode. Is that what this is?
We're talking in the coupling.
Oh, okay, in the coupling.
Yeah. So, if I go 1 meg and a 470 cap, so let's say I just increased the 1 meg, the resistor to 1 meg and kept the cap the same. Now my roll off is 338K. So I'm allowing a lot more bass in that way. So I have a whole bunch of those resistors or values calculated. So depending on if I want more of a Marshall or more of a like modern tone, I have like little presets of values that work well, and I don't have to think about it or do the math. I just know I want more gain or I want less gain, but I want to keep the frequency balance the same,
Right.
or I want to change the frequency balance, but I want to keep the network the same. I got a little cheat sheet.
Or just more gain and more low end.
Yeah.
Can never go wrong with that. Just more.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's what we all want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's more? Hookers and blow.
Blow. Gain and low end equals hookers and blow. I like it.
Oh, well, where's mine?
Yeah. Dude, you need some earthquake anchors for that thing.
It kind of baffles my mind at how much weight is on that one little small area of carpet. Like, you gotta think all of those amps are 50 to 60 pounds each. That diamond cab is heavy. Like for a 2x12 and how small it is, that thing is dense. I think it's a good 70 pounds.
Dude.
And then the Avatar is another 70.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen? If there's ever an earthquake, those amps are going to be fine, but you're going to be dead because the little hotone's going to come rocketing off of there like a trebuchet and hit you in the head.
Well, I think I got bigger problems to worry about if we have an earthquake because I'm in the basement, so I have the entire house that'll collapse on me.
Yeah, an earthquake in St. fucking Louis. I mean,
Yeah. Hey, we had the big one a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
The big one. So in my idiocy, I looked outside. It was like the middle of the night. And I was, what was I, 10? I don't know. I felt an earthquake. I was like, I'm gonna look outside to see if the street's cracking.
Yeah. Well, naturally.
Yeah. And my parents are like, what are you doing? So
Well, hey, listen, guys.
yeah, it's been
epic as
it's
whatever.
Huh.
I think, is anyone still on the chat?
No, we've lost a lot of the guys. Yeah, we have 6 watching now.
That's cool.
So, yeah, we've been.
Well, yeah, 3 of them are us. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, congrats to the 3 guys that stayed on. You guys are all getting Jet City t-shirts. We can totally convince Doug to do that, right?
yeah.
Oh,
Once you
sweet.
send money and buy them, you will definitely get them.
Yeah,
$7 in.
that'll be the shtick for this show. Is just see who can last the longest until there's only 3 left.
Yeah. It's like kissing a car for whoever can hold it out the longest or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever promo the radio station's doing.
All right.
Yeah, this was fun. This was a good first episode. I think we covered a lot of ground on some of the feedback we were getting, the comments and everything that we wanted to address, and so this has been awesome.
Yeah, I think next time I definitely want to do a mod live.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was either going to do a depth mod or a negative feedback control mod, just because they're kind of easy.
They're both basically in the same location.
Yeah, you can do it pretty quickly too.
I'd do the negative feedback because that's not something a lot of people know exactly what it does, and I don't know what it sounds like.
Yeah, that's what I was going to do.
Power tubes a lot more. It's awesome. It is
Ralph
awesome.
Nader Chop's promising to be funnier, but I think he was the best part of the show.
I know, yeah.
But
We definitely need
Chad
him
was
on.
on fire.
I still don't know who it is.
I swear, Ralph Nader Chop, reveal yourself. Who are you?
I wanted to say it was
Give us the first name
Jonathan.
of
Was it John? Was it Jonathan Warner? It's somebody from the group.
No, he's commented on this already.
Oh, Jonathan Warner did?
Yeah, early on.
Oh, it's not Eric Sue.
Oh, it is.
Oh, it is. Okay. Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is. Do you have 2 accounts? Are you
Yeah,
astroturfing our chat?
One hand on each keyboard.
He's
Chatting with
astroturfing the
himself.
chat.
You're awesome. No, you're awesome. No, you're awesome.
All right.
Well, thank you guys for tuning in. This has been a blast. Hopefully, we can keep this going and let it grow and kind of spread the word, and
Yeah.
hopefully have a little bit more structure next time. I mean,
Yeah, this was just kind of a first run just to see how it goes. Very casual and not really any schedule at all.
yeah.
And now we know how to set it up. So that was the big part, just getting it working.
Yeah, we got a late start with that.
Yeah.
So Grandpa knows better for next time, though.
Yeah. So yeah, drop some comments. Tell us what you like. Tell us what you didn't like, and we'll make it better next show. And until then, I'm going to say goodnight. Luke,
Yeah.
it's been awesome to finally talk to both of you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Live, after talking on chat for months.
I think it's been well over a year.
Oh, easily.
Yeah, it's been, we've had that group chat for a while.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right.
So this is long overdue. This is very long overdue.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
So, Soundgardener sure leaned a lot.
He did lean a lot. He's silky.
He's pulling the Michael Jackson.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to click the button, fellas.
Click the button. I'm out, guys.
Good night, y'all.
Night. See ya.
Good night.